Chapter 1946. Treasure. The space secret realm originated from the turbulent void. Other than the key to the void door, there would be some other treasures. Basically, the higher the level of the space secret realm, the higher the quality of the treasure. In a huge ice pillar, there was a pair of bright wings. It was a flying-type treasure. Punk. Lin Feng smashed the ice pillar and took out the wings. It was cold to the touch and had a cold aura. Other than the fluctuation of light, there was a faint space aura. It was an elite true treasure. Not very useful. As far as Lin Feng was concerned, elite true treasures were more than enough. Perhaps this pair of light and space elemental wings would be of some help to him, but such help was basically dispensable. In the same amount of time, he could use other methods to improve his strength. The current Lin Feng was even more powerful, and his horizons were even higher. There seems to be more than one. Lin Feng quickly found another one. It was also in the ice pillar. The third level of the space secret realm was not big, but there were many treasures. I'm afraid most of the treasures in the space secret realm are here. Lin Feng smiled. This was another rule of the space secret realm. The treasures were always in the depths, where the space energy was the strongest. One thing after another. Lin Feng swept through more than half of the space secret realm and obtained 8 ordinary true treasures and 4 elite true treasures. In terms of harvest, he was already very fruitful. At this moment, Lin Feng's gaze was fixed on an incomparably huge ice pillar. The size of the ice pillar was completely different. Ordinary true treasure ice pillars are usually 5 to 10 meters long. Elite true treasure ice pillars are 50 to 100 meters long. And this one, Lin Feng looked at the ice pillar that was almost 1,000 meters tall and smiled after being surprised. In the ice pillar was a pair of huge black wings. It was similar to the first white wings, but it was much bigger. The secret patterns on the wings were more complicated. There were 3 pairs of black wings. Compared to the white wings, there was only 1 pair. The visual effect was much better. Excellent true treasure. This must be an excellent true treasure. Lin Feng was 100% sure. Lin Feng's dark magic patterns trembled slightly. This pair of huge black wings definitely contained the law of darkness. Displaying the power of devouring with both hands, Lin Feng shattered the ice pillar and took out the black wings. Hua! As soon as he touched it, a wave of magic came from the black wings. It was an ancient demon that was high up in the air. It spread its wings, and its roar ravaged all living creatures. The flapping of its wings stirred up spatial turbulence. Streaks of black light pierced through, as if they were blackened spatial blades. So powerful. Lin Feng was shocked. He had only just gotten his hands on it, but he was already seeing such a scene. This black wing was probably quite good even among superior true treasures. An attack type true treasure? Lin Feng was puzzled, but he didn't agree. He put it away and went to check the other areas of the secret realm. The second level of the space secret realm. Ming Ho roared, and blue blood seeped out of the phosphor armor. Although he had killed the hateful reptile human, he had also suffered serious injuries, especially the Eye of Void. After using his innate killer move, his vitality was greatly damaged. This human is really poor. He didn't leave anything behind, Ming Ho muttered. His aura swept through the entire secret realm, but he didn't find anything. Or did his spatial ring turn to ashes under this king's attack? Yes, that should be the case. That's my innate killer move. A human reptile should be proud to die under my Eye of Void mincing. Ming Ho muttered a few words narcissistically. Then he felt sleepy, but his injuries were too serious. In a daze, he lay on the ground, snoring thunderously, and entered a state of rest. Generally speaking, Lin Feng's sudden disappearance would definitely arouse suspicion. However, he had encountered Ming Ho. It would be amazing if he, with his low intelligence, could find any flaws or confusion. In fact, with Lin Feng's experience, if he really wanted to escape through the entrance of the 3rd floor, he would definitely break one or several spatial rings, causing the treasures to scatter and create the illusion of death. However, Lin Feng didn't do that. He even hoped that Ming Ho could chase him into the third floor and compete again. Ming Ho, who had just used his innate killer move, was already at the end of his tether. Suddenly changing to a new space, he couldn't use his innate killer move a second time. In addition, his vitality was greatly damaged, so his strength must have decreased a lot. Although he wasn't sure if he could kill him, at least Lin Feng believed that he had the strength to fight. However, since Ming Ho didn't chase after him, Lin Feng wouldn't foolishly provoke him. At this moment, there was no need to. Outside the secret realm, the three Bloodmite brothers were waiting anxiously. At first, they were very nervous, but then they looked at each other, completely unaware of what had happened. One day and one night, even if they fought until the end of time, it should have ended, right? However, the entire secret realm was extremely quiet. Neither Ming Ho nor that peak 8-star expert appeared. No one knew what had happened inside. Did Ming Ho win or lose? It can't be that he lost. Peach Arrow's voice was somewhat uncertain. It should be impossible, but Bloodmite's hair was disheveled, and his eyes were full of confusion. If Ming Ho killed that peak 8-star expert, he should have come out long ago, unless Bloodmite gritted his teeth, his expression turning even uglier. Unless he's dead. Jade Fox's voice was cold. That peak 8-star expert won't come out. He came here to cultivate. Peach Arrow shook his head. How can a peak 8-star expert kill a 9-star expert? It's possible. Jade Fox's gaze was cold. Li Qing, who is now known as the strongest solo traveler, once killed a 9-star expert before reaching 8-star strength. His fame spread far and wide. Peach Arrow's eyes widened. Azure Dragon King. That's a transcendent being ranked 3rd on the Origin Awakening list. Bloodmite's voice was heavy. What second brother means is that there is such a possibility. After all, Ming Ho is too stupid. His opponent might make use of this to set a trap for him. Killing Ming Ho doesn't necessarily require force. The Jade Fox nodded. Big brother is right. I think so too. However, there's another possibility, which is to perish together with the enemy. This peak 8-star martial artist has a strong background. I'm afraid he might really have such strength. Is there a third possibility? Peach Arrow asked. I don't think so. Jade Fox hesitated and looked at Bloodmite. Come, let's go in and take a look. Bloodmite said in a low voice. The secret realm was discovered by the three of us. We just have to pretend that nothing happened. Even if that peak 8-star expert is inside, it doesn't matter. Moreover, if he's really not dead and is heavily injured. Bloodmite's eyes were filled with killing intent. Let us three brothers send him on his last journey. Chapter 1947. When the Sandpiper and the Clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. The three Bloodmite brothers were indeed good at scheming. They subdued the enemy without fighting and were in an invincible position. Soon, the three entered the space secret realm. The first level, the second level, what a terrifying space turbulence. Peach Arrow was shocked. A great battle happened here. Bloodmite scanned the area. Such a strong space fluctuation must have come from Ho-Ho. Ho-Ho's talent was no longer a secret. Bloodmite naturally knew about it. I wonder who won. The Jade Fox looked worried. Bloodmite's mouth was cold. It's best if both sides suffered great losses. If that happened, he could even take away Ho-Ho's treasures. However, from what he knew, Ho-Ho seemed to have very few treasures. He did not even have a single supreme treasure on him. Among the 9-star experts, Ho-Ho was not the poorest, but he was not far from it. Big brother, look. Peach Arrow's eyes widened as he pointed ahead. Much of the space secret realm had been destroyed. Space turbulence was everywhere, and their sense of aura was completely blocked. Therefore, they could only look with their eyes. Peach Arrow was famous for his arrows, so his eyesight was extraordinary. Let's go. Bloodmite frowned slightly. His gaze darkened as he flew away. Soon, the three arrived at the center of the battle. It was a barren and dilapidated area, showing the intensity of the battle. In the center of this area, a huge creature was sleeping soundly. Dumbfounded, the three Bloodmite brothers' faces twitched. They looked at the sleeping Ho-Ho and did not know what to say for a moment. There was no third possibility, but there really was a third possibility, They had overestimated Ho-Ho. This fellow was a bastard who did not play by the rules. Usually, after completing a mission, shouldn't he inform them? Yet, he fell asleep right after the battle. If the three of them had not come in, who knew what would have happened after sleeping for thousands of years? Wake him up. Blood Mite gritted his teeth angrily. Second brother. Third brother? Blood Mite was slightly startled. He looked around, but the Jade Fox and Peach Arrow were nowhere to be seen. They had retreated 100 steps away and were looking at the huge Ho-Ho with fear, especially that long tail that was covered in thorns and exquisite scales. The bloody scar on the Jasper Fox's face was faintly painful, and the Peach Arrow was trembling. They had suffered a great loss before. Mingho was an unreasonable fellow. He came up and slapped him directly. If he were to do it again, he would lose his life. Cowardly as a mouse, Blood Mite snorted. With his messy hair, he exerted force with both hands and punched Darkroar. The force of his punch was just enough to wake Darkroar up. After all, Darkroar relied on shouting. Ordinary pushing was useless. Wake up, Brother Roar. Blood Mite's voice was low. The punch landed directly on the ferocious Roar's already weak defense, causing the ferocious Roar to hiss in pain as if it was in its sleep. Its huge and thick tail was like a dragon, swinging its tail as it swept the Blood Mite's waist with a bang. Boom! Unable to react in time, the Blood Mite was sent flying. The Jade Fox and Peach Arrow, who were watching from afar, widened their eyes in shock. Was he really going to smoke? Moreover, the beating this time was much more vicious than the previous time. Fortunately, the Jade Fox and Peach Arrow looked at each other and secretly felt lucky. Fortunately, they were smart. Otherwise, they would have lost half of their lives. Poof! Even though the Blood Mite's defense was good, he was still hit until he saw stars and his ribs ached. After all, it was Darkroar, a special life form. His tail was no less than an elite true treasure. Although it was a conditioned reflex, its power had reached the limit of 8-star. This guy, the Blood Mite, was a stubborn person. He gritted his teeth and was about to wake Darkroar up again. He was eager to know what had happened. Where was the buyer now? However, bang, bang, bang. Darkroar's answer was simple and powerful. It was to whip again and again. Even though the Blood Mite was prepared, he could not withstand such attacks. Darkroar's attack power was unparalleled and terrifying. In fact, under normal circumstances, Darkroar would have woken up long ago. However, Darkroar was not sleeping. To be precise, he was in a coma. Because his vitality was greatly damaged, he was completely unconscious and only had a trace of consciousness left. He had to have a good sleep to recover some vitality. However, the Blood Mite did not know. Instead, he was beaten up until his face was covered in blood. Even the Jade Fox and Peach Arrow could not stand it anymore. If this went on, their big brother would probably be beaten to death. Big brother, should we look around first? Yes, if the buyer is dead, his things should be here. The Blood Mite, who was in severe pain, scratched his messy hair and said, Yes, why didn't I think of that? Quick, let's search the entire secret realm. The Blood Mite's chest rose and fell rapidly. The buyer with peak 8-star strength was gone, but Darkroar was still there. The result was obvious. It was just as they had expected. Darkroar had killed the buyer easily. The only unexpected thing was that Darkroar had fallen asleep inexplicably. The third level of the space secret realm. At that moment, Lin Feng had already swept through every nook and cranny of the entire secret realm. He didn't let go of even the slightest bit of evidence. After dismantling all of the ice ceiling pillars, he obtained a total of 12 ordinary true treasures, 5 elite true treasures, and 1 outstanding true treasure. Not counting the outstanding true treasures, the total value was more than 1 billion. Including the priceless outstanding true treasures, the harvest was amazing. It's also luck. Lin Feng smiled. If Darkroar had not broken the entire second level, he would not have found the entrance. This time, his harvest was probably greater than the experts who found this secret realm. Compared to him, they only had 1 more key to the void door, but they definitely did not have any outstanding true treasures. As for the other true treasures, it was good to have a few or even 10. It's easy to come in, but it seems a little difficult to get out. Lin Feng looked around. Through the entrance, he could sense that there was a space mezzanine outside. If he went back the way he came, he would have to find a way to the second level. After all, he had not mastered the space law. If it was dark roar, it could easily enter and exit the space mezzanine and shatter and condense space. But he could not. Since he was already here, he might as well make the best of it. Anyway, I'm not in a hurry to get out. Lin Feng was not worried. This was because the space secret realm would slowly expand, like a ball of plasticine that was originally curled up into a ball, gradually loosening and returning to its original state. As the folds spread out, the entrance would gradually appear. He only needed to wait patiently. At least 2 more years. Lin Feng sat cross-legged. The black vortex was very excited at this time, madly absorbing the space energy. In a few months, he would be able to absorb all the space energy on the 3rd level. In terms of the total amount, there was more here than on the 2nd level. Chapter 1948. On the other side, Lin Feng began to cultivate. On the other side, the 3 Blood Might brothers were frantically searching for the relics. Nothing. Nothing. Still nothing. After searching for 3 days and 3 nights, they had turned the entire space mystic realm upside down, but they still found nothing. The 3 Blood Might brothers' eyes were bloodshot, as if they had gone mad. Impossible! Why is there nothing? Blood Might roared furiously. Beside him, the Jade Fox and Peach Arrow stopped. Their expressions were terrible. Logically speaking, after the Peak 8-star buyer was killed, his space ring and treasures should have been dropped. However, they could not find anything. If the buyer escaped, where did he go? They had been guarding outside the mystic realm all this time. There are 3 possibilities. The Jade Fox's voice was low as he frowned. The first possibility is that the Peak 8-star buyer did not have any space ring or treasures on him, so he was killed. Blood Might gritted his teeth. That's impossible. That's right. Did he know that he would die? Second brother, I think this possibility is very small, Peach Arrow said. The Jade Fox nodded. The second possibility is that he escaped. Some special treasures can allow him to escape directly. Or perhaps he was hiding and only left after all of us came in. That's why we didn't discover him. Blood Might's expression was ferocious. Ming Ho is a 9-star powerhouse who is proficient in the space law. No special space escape treasures will work in front of him. As for hiding, I don't believe he's so powerful. If he can really avoid Ming Ho and hide, he doesn't need to be afraid of us. The Jade Fox heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Blood Might. Then, there's only the third possibility. What? Blood Might and Peach Arrow's eyes turned cold. The Jade Fox looked at Ming Ho, who was as huge as a mountain in the distance. He gritted his teeth and said coldly, Ming Ho killed the buyer and took his treasures for himself. Swoosh! Blood Might and Peach Arrow's expressions changed drastically. In fact, they had also thought about this question in their hearts. Combined with Ming Ho's strange behavior, falling asleep inexplicably, the possibility was greater, but they had been unwilling to think in this direction. In their opinion, with Ming Ho's intelligence, it was impossible for him to do such a thing. This guy has gone astray, Peach Arrow said angrily. Actually, it's very normal for people to eat each other. The Jasper Fox's expression was ugly. Although she was rational, she could not hide her anger. So this guy has always been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. The Blood Might had completely figured out. If this matter was not done by Ming Ho, what else could it be? If Ming Ho did not have a guilty conscience, why did he pretend to be asleep? He even whipped him until he wanted to die. If Dark Roar had kept his promise and completed the mission, he should have come out after the battle. At the very least, he should have given them an explanation. We underestimated Ho-Ho. The Jasper Fox sighed softly. That buyer's wealth is probably enormous. It's enough to make even a 9-star expert coveted. Then what should we do, second brother? Are we just going to let go like this? Peach Arrow's face was red with anger. That was 2 billion void crystals, and it was gone just like that. They might not be able to earn that much even after dozens of eras. It was like a treasure that was in his hands, and it was gone with a poochie. The Jasper Fox's expression was ugly. What can we do? Ming-Ho clearly doesn't want to give it to us. Who can we reason with? He's strong, and he's acting shamelessly. We can only swallow this anger. The strong bully the weak, and the weak can only endure and endure. This is the principle of origin awake incontinent. To put it bluntly, if we really anger Ming-Ho, none of US can escape. These words instantly extinguished the anger of the Blood Mite and the Peach Arrow. It was as if they had been doused with ice water, and the soles of their feet were cold, and they shivered. Yes, how could they forget? This giant beast was the temperamental Ming-Ho. He had always killed without batting an eye. Countless 8-star experts had died under his claws. So what if he blamed them? This was not their treasure in the first place. They had no right to say anything. Not to mention, they were not in the right. If they really went overboard and angered Ming-Ho, he would directly kill them. That would be called injustice. Let's go. It'll be too late if Ming-Ho changes his mind. The Jasper Fox was the calmest of the three brothers. He glanced at Ming-Ho with fear, and his voice was filled with extreme unwillingness and helplessness. The Blood Mite and the Peach Arrow lowered their heads, looking dispirited. They let out a long sigh and left. Money was important, but their lives were more important. Soon, 3 months passed. The space secret realm was still the same as before. In the battle zone on the second floor, the damaged space had almost completely healed. Space itself had the ability to heal itself, but the energy in the space secret realm was too strong, so the healing process was a little slow. Ming-Ho was still sleeping. Lin Feng cultivated on the third floor for 3 months. The black vortex began to absorb without restraint, but it gradually slowed down. After all, the energy in the third floor was limited. At present, the energy in the third floor was almost completely absorbed. There was less than 10% left, and the absorption efficiency was greatly reduced. Actually, it's about time to leave. Lin Feng's gaze fell on the entrance, and he frowned slightly. The entrance still led to a spatial mezzanine, which was a chaotic space. If he entered, he might find a way out in a year or so if he was lucky, but if he was unlucky, he might get lost. The danger was not great. After all, his body was strong enough to resist the attack of the spatial turbulence. It was just that it would take time, and he could easily get lost. But if he continued to stay here, it would be a waste of time. If he was lucky, the entrance passage might appear in a few years. If he was unlucky, he might have to wait decades or even centuries to enter or not to enter. Right? Don't I have a space treasure? And I have 2 of them. Lin Feng suddenly thought of something, and his heart skipped a beat. Light flashed in his hands, and 2 unique lights appeared. His left hand was transparent, and his right hand was pitch black. They were the excellent Brahma and the pair of black wings. The Brahma was obtained when he joined the clan. As for the pair of black wings, he obtained on the 3rd floor. 2 excellent true treasures. Let's merge with the Brahma first. After all, it's a pure, excellent, true treasure. Let's see if I can get anything. Lin Feng had not merged with the Brahma before, because he had not comprehended the space laws. It was difficult for him to unleash the power of a space treasure, especially an excellent one. But there was no harm in trying now. If one really wanted to calculate, it could be said that he was desperately trying to find a doctor. Phew! Lin Feng let out a light sigh. Very quickly, he connected with it. Just as he had imagined, there was no feeling of a bloodline connection. After all, his comprehension of the law of space was not high enough, and his strength was not that strong. Whoosh information about the Brahma flooded his mind in an instant. Chapter 1949. Excellent True Treasure Brahma. Basic Ability Brahma Domain. Advanced Ability Brahma's Wrath. Ultimate Ability Great Brahma. The 3 pieces of information and the introduction of the 3 abilities were reflected in Lin Feng's mind like pages of a book. It took Lin Feng a full quarter of an hour to fully absorb the information and gain a clear understanding of the superior true treasure, Brahma. It was a space domain type true treasure. Domain type true treasures were already very precious, especially space domain type ones. Because space had its own domain, it was even more powerful when combined with a domain. Basic ability, as long as I follow the secret pattern, it's not difficult. I'll be able to grasp the general method in 7 days at most. Lin Feng made a clear judgment. However, basic ability was just basic, and its power was almost similar to the advanced ability of an elite true treasure. If I'm proficient in space law, even if I'm proficient in any kind of law, the power of Brahma domain will be comparable to the ultimate mystery of an elite true treasure. Lin Feng thought to himself, this was the power of an excellent true treasure. It was the best treasure for a 9-star expert to unleash his strength. For example, his elite true treasure, Profound Light Shuttle, could unleash the ultimate mystery, 9 sections flow, but it was only equivalent to a basic ability of a perfect fit for an excellent true treasure or an advanced ability of a normal fit for an excellent true treasure. This showed the gap. However, excellent true treasures were very rare. Other than being able to use the Brahma domain, I can't use anything else. Lin Feng was helpless. The requirements were too high. For example, the advanced ability, Brahma's Wrath, required him to be proficient in space law, strangulation. That was strangulation. Similarly, there were differences in comprehension of the space laws. For example, shattering and condensing were very ordinary space laws, so they were easy to comprehend. However, strangulation was a high-level space law, so it was very difficult to comprehend. As for the ultimate ability, Great Brahma, it was needless to say. Anyway, let's practice it first. Lin Feng didn't hesitate and started to practice Brahma domain. After all, he had already merged with it, so he would have to practice it sooner or later. Basic ability wasn't difficult. Even if he didn't comprehend any space law, he could practice it. In the first place, this was the activation of the secret inscriptions. Just like a car, you don't need to know how to build a car, you only need to know how to drive it. In less than 3 days, Lin Feng had a rough understanding of the usage of each secret pattern, as well as how to trigger and use them. In less than 5 days, he was already familiar with them. Brahma domain. Lin Feng's hands passed through a 5-colored brilliance. In an instant, with the 5-colored brilliance as the center, a huge halo condensed, and the entire area was under his control. He raised his hand, and with a palm strike, the 5-colored brilliance burst forth with a rumbling sound, and power splashed in all directions. It was a domain that combined restriction and attack. I can control space, but it's not very useful for finding a path, but it's better than nothing. Lin Feng smiled. At the very least, in this Brahma heaven domain, everything was under his control. It would be much more convenient for him to explore. After all, once one entered the spatial mezzanine, without a complete space, it would be difficult to sense one's aura. Let's see if it works again. Lin Feng took out another superior true treasure. It was the black wings that he had obtained here. The huge black wings were like the wings of an ancient demon. There were 3 pairs of them, and each pair was engraved with extremely intricate, dark, demonic patterns. It was a rare superior true treasure produced at the 3rd level of the space secret realm. It was in superior true treasure of the dark element. However, he could also sense a small amount of space energy. Obviously, it also contained space law. Sooner or later, he would have to merge with it. After all, one of the Daos that Lin Feng cultivated was dark. Whoosh, the black wings were like the wings of a rock. When they were fully opened, the huge wings formed a pitch-black sphere like a cocoon. The entire space became pitch black, and the turbulent power of darkness surged. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Information flowed into his mind. Lin Feng's dark demonic patterns were incomparably bright, as if they were connected to his bloodline. His heart beat extremely fast, and he could vaguely feel the aura of an ancient demon. His blood was boiling. Perfect compatibility. Different combinations would result in different powers being unleashed. Superior true treasure, warm wings. Lin Feng finally knew where the black wings came from. They came from the ancient demon, Warm. This was a type of demon that specialized in dark element and space, and its talent was space disorder. After he perished, his wings were refined into a supreme treasure called the Wings of Warmth. Basic abilities: space disorder, warm wings protection. Advanced abilities: warm wings phantom, warm wings slash, a total of 3 levels. Ultimate ability: unparalleled dark wings. Lin Feng's side: a total of 5 abilities. Different superior true treasures had different abilities. Some had more, some had less, and some had strange shapes. However, generally speaking, one could tell the level of a superior true treasure just by looking at the number of abilities. Obviously, Brahma was an ordinary superior true treasure. After all, it was a gift from the race. Of course, there were others that were weaker than it. For example, the Mohuyu, which he had first obtained, was a special type. It could not be considered weak. After all, to a useful expert, it could be stronger than warm wings. However, there was no doubt that warm wings was the most suitable and the strongest one for him. There were 2 basic abilities, both of which were abilities that the Wings of Warmth had prepared. Space disorder. Ancient Demon Worm's talent is space law disorder. It's slightly weaker than space law strangulation, but stronger than space law consolidation and shattering. It's a mid-level space law. In other words, as long as I learn to use this secret pattern, it's almost equivalent to comprehending space law disorder. Lin Feng smiled casually. After all, he could only use the secret pattern. He did not know much about space law disorder. He could not use space law disorder, and his moves were not flexible enough. However, it was extremely difficult to comprehend space law. Even Ming Ho had only comprehended 2 of the most ordinary space law. 99% of 8-star experts had not comprehended space law. After all, as long as one comprehended space law and their bloodline was not too bad, they would have broken through to 9-star. With warm wings, I have nothing to fear under 9-star. Lin Feng was very satisfied. Just this basic ability of chaotic space alone was enough to give him enough confidence. After entering the space between layers, I can use space disorder to make the entire space chaotic. It will be easier to find the real entrance. With Brahma Domain, it will be even more stable. Even if my luck is bad, I will definitely find the exit within a year. Lin Feng was very confident. However, this was far from the true strength of space disorder. Its true strength was not in fighting or finding the way, but comprehension. After mastering the mystic runes, I can use the chaotic space. Naturally, I can comprehend the profound mysteries of the laws while using it. Using this as a foundation, I can then comprehend the chaotic space law with half the effort. Lin Feng was very satisfied. Chapter 1950. The Wings of Warmth had many uses and was even more powerful. It was a super superior true treasure that combined attack, defense, and control. If there were different levels of superior true treasures, the Wings of Warmth would definitely be at the top level. Moreover, it was perfectly compatible with Lin Feng. Even so, it still took Lin Feng half a month to completely master the secret engravings and use the chaotic space. After all, the stronger the power, the harder it was to master it. However, the other basic ability, the Wings of Warmth protection, was mastered very quickly. In less than 3 days, he was able to use its full power. This was the defensive ability of the Wings of Warmth. It wrapped the 3 pairs of wings and formed an indestructible cocoon-like form to defend against external attacks. Not only could it weaken the power and impact, but it could also weaken soul attacks. Just these 2 basic abilities alone made the Wings of Warmth comparable to an ordinary, superior, true treasure. As for the advanced ability, it was even more powerful. However, Lin Feng didn't need it at the moment and didn't have much time to cultivate it. Compared to basic abilities, any advanced ability would take years to master. Advanced abilities didn't just require secret engravings. They also required complete comprehension and clear cultivation conditions. Shua. Lin Feng left the 3rd level of the space secret realm that he had stayed in for almost 4 months. Just as he had sensed before, there was a spatial mezzanine at the end of the entrance. The spatial mezzanine was gray in color, and there were spatial turbulences everywhere. It was easy to get lost in it. Brahma Sky Domain. Lin Feng's five-colored light flashed as he controlled himself. The Brahma Sky Domain firmly wrapped around the entrance to be safe. Even if he couldn't find the entrance, he could at least use the third level of the space mystic realm and wait for the entrance to open itself. However, Lin Feng didn't think that was likely. With the wings of Worm's chaotic space, he was confident that he could find the exit to the second level. Hua! The black wings spread open with an oppressive aura. It was as if an ancient demon had reappeared. Dark demonic engravings appeared and resonated with the demonic engravings on the surface of Lin Feng's body. It was a perfect fit. La! Pa! The space shook as the engravings flashed. Chaos. Amidst Lin Feng's deep roar, the small area around him rapidly changed. It was like a towel that was constantly being tightened and tightened, causing the surrounding space to shatter. Amidst the distortion, the layers of space instantly changed. Lin Feng's eyes were like torches as he searched for any strange points in the shattered space. He needed to try again, and then it would all depend on his luck. He was lucky and appeared quickly. If he was unlucky, he could only wait patiently. You can try expanding the area of spatial disorder. Lin Feng used it again and again. The secret runes flashed, and the mysteries of space disorder were completely exposed. Every time he used it, Lin Feng's understanding of space disorder deepened. Could it be that before I find the exit, I've already comprehended space disorder? Lin Feng couldn't help but smile, but it was just a random thought. How difficult was it to comprehend the laws of space? This was especially true for spatial disorder, which was a mid-ranked law. Even if he could use spatial disorder, it would take him a long time to master it. 1 year and 8 months. The sooner I find the exit, the sooner I can absorb some more spatial energy on the second floor. I wonder if Meng Ho is still there. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of Meng Ho before, and he was even less afraid now. Just the Brahma Heaven Domain alone was enough to counter Meng Ho's ultimate move. As long as he kept the space intact, with his speed and profound light shuttle, Meng Ho wouldn't be able to do anything to him. If he added space disorder, it would be enough to make Meng Ho fly into a rage. Although he couldn't use space disorder to counter his 2 ultimate moves, he could still cause trouble. This was the ancient demon Su's fighting style. Su's control of space was inferior to his opponent's, so he might as well use space disorder. And those 3 dire straits. They're quite good at using others to kill. Do they think I don't know? Lin Feng's eyes flashed with killing intent. Since they schemed against him, he wouldn't be magnanimous enough to let them off. If others respect him, he would respect him tenfold. When I come out, it will be your time of death. No one can save you. Lin Feng's black wings flapped in the chaotic space. Lines of secret runes flashed, making him look like the incarnation of a devil. The second level of the space mystic realm. Whoosh whoosh. There was a sudden clap of thunder. Meng Ho opened his eyes and looked around in a daze. It was as if his memory had suddenly disappeared and was completely fragmented. His golden claws rubbed the broken phosphor armor. After a few hours and days, Meng Ho muttered to himself and scratched his head. How did I fall asleep? Oh, the mission is completed. It's time to find those 3 guys. Meng Ho's vitality was greatly damaged, so he fell asleep involuntarily. According to his original plan, after completing the mission, he would naturally go and report it and end the mission. Now that he was awake, although he was still a little weak, Meng Ho still staggered out of the space secret realm. King's Reincarnation City, 10,000 Wheel Palace. In the 9 Stars Mission Hall, the 3 Blood Might brothers were drinking and chatting merrily. Let me toast you, big brother. Smooth sailing, bright future. Green Jade Fox raised her wine glass and smiled. Let me toast you too, big brother. You broke through to 9 stars in one go. Peach Arrow laughed. Good. I will do my best. Blood Might laughed heartily, his messy hair showing a bit of dominance. When I return from the turbulent void and become a 9-star expert, us 3 brothers will rise in the Origin Awakened continent and build a hegemony. The 3 wine glasses clinked, and the 3 brothers downed the wine in one gulp. The turbulent void had begun to show signs, and it would officially open in the near future, at most 10 years. The 3 Blood Might brothers were ready to say goodbye. After all, only Blood Might had the key. It's a pity that we didn't earn the 2 billion void crystals, otherwise Big Brother's strength would have improved by another level. Green Jade Fox said regretfully, "Let be." Blood Might frowned slightly and raised his glass to drink again. No matter how much we calculated, we didn't expect Meng Ho to be so cunning. We were all deceived by his appearance. In any case, at least we got the reward of 150 million void crystals for this 9 stars mission. For the 3 Blood Might brothers, although they didn't get the 2 billion void crystals, they didn't lose much. After all, they got the reward of the 9 stars mission to sell information about the space secret realm. Damn Meng Ho! Peach Arrow was still angry when he thought of it. At this moment, Pong, a huge figure suddenly appeared in the 9 stars mission hall. It had a monstrous aura, and it had a ferocious blood-red eye. It was covered in phosphorescent armor, and its huge tail was whipping the ground. It was Meng Ho, who hadn't been seen for a long time. Meng Ho glanced at the 3 Blood Might brothers fiercely and glared at them, roaring, "Hey, you killed them. Where are the 300 million void crystals?" The 3 Blood Might brothers were stunned. Chapter 1951. Master Meng Ho, isn't this inappropriate? Blood Might gritted his teeth. The Green Jade Fox and Peach Arrow were also cursing in their hearts. Even if you made a huge profit, we wouldn't dare to say anything. The previous employment relationship was considered null and void, and this matter was over just like that. Who would have thought that Meng Ho would appear again? Moreover, he shamelessly asked them for 300 million void crystals. What inappropriate! Meng Ho glared at Blood Might. "I killed someone for you. Give me 300 million void crystals according to the agreed price. I'm already merciful enough for not asking you first. Don't tell me you want to go back on your word." The 3 Blood Might brothers didn't have so much money with them, so they owed Meng Ho. Meng Ho wasn't afraid that they would go back on their word. What a joke. He was a 9-star expert. If these ants dare to go back on their word, they would be courting death. Master Meng Ho, we all need to save face. I'm afraid it won't be good if this matter gets out. Green Jade Fox saw how shameless Meng Ho was, so she had to bite the bullet. What do you mean by not spreading it out? Give me the money. Meng Ho didn't understand Green Jade Fox at all. He stretched out his golden claws and said with his head held high. The 3 Blood Might brothers were furious. They had seen unreasonable people, but they had never seen such an unreasonable person. They had already lost the watermelon after picking up sesame seeds. Meng Ho had obviously eaten a big watermelon, and now he was still thinking about their sesame seeds. He was too hateful, too shameless. However, Meng Ho was in the right, and he was a 9-star expert. Even if the 3 Blood Might brothers were full of resentment and indignation, they didn't dare to fall out with Meng Ho. "Hey, hurry up. My time is precious." Meng Ho became more and more impatient, and the single eye on his forehead condensed into a bloody red color. What a joke. He had paid a huge price to kill that reptile human, and these 3 guys were still dawdling over there. Meng Ho was instantly enraged, and his face was ferocious. "Are you done? If you don't give it to me, I'll strip you." The 3 Blood Might brothers trembled violently. Strip them? Only Meng Ho could do such a thing. He didn't care about the face of a 9-star expert. Although this was the Thousand Wool Palace, the territory of Samsara, and it was unforgivable to fight here, it depended on the person. Would Samsara dare to stop Nightmarish Roar? Rules were just shackles for the weak. To the strong, they were simply disdainful. In the world of the strong, there was only one standard. The strong were respected. Whoever had the biggest fist and the strongest backing would be the boss. "We'll give it to you. Lord Meng Ho, please calm down." Seeing this, the Jasper Fox immediately tried to curry favor. "Big brother, how much money do you have on you?" "Less than 10 million. Blood Might gritted his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter, but he had no choice but to endure it. He had taken 120 million out of 150 million for himself, but he had spent most of it on armor. After all, He was about to enter the turbulent void, so it was pointless to keep void crystals with him. What about you, third brother? The Jasper Fox asked. I still have 15 million, second brother, Peach Arrow said. The Jasper Fox said, take it all out and give it to me. Ming Ho stared at the three Blood Might brothers, and his anger subsided a little. He snorted and said, you've got guts. How dare you renege on my money? His words made the three Blood Might brothers vomit blood. There's a total of 47 million void crystals here. There's still 253 million void crystals left. Please wait for a moment, Lord Ming Ho. We'll go and get them immediately. The Jasper Fox respectfully handed them over with both hands. I'll give you everything in 3 days at most. Who's waiting for you for 3 days? Ming Ho glared. Do you think I'm a fool? Who knows if you'll run away again? Where'll I find you next time? Give it to me now. If it's not enough, give me something else. Bang! Ming Ho slammed his golden claws and looked down on them with disdain. If you don't give me 300 million void crystals today, don't even think about leaving. The three Blood Might brothers turned pale. They did not expect to meet such an unreasonable lord like Ming Ho. I just bought this elite, true treasure, Gong Tsang armor for 135 million void crystals. Blood Might endured the pain and took out the armor. He had taken the largest amount of the 150 million void crystals previously to buy the Gong Tsang armor. Big brother, the Jasper Fox and Peach Arrow said. Say no more. Blood Might lowered his head, his heart bleeding. It was useless even if he was reluctant. He knew clearly that if he did not satisfy Ming Ho today, there would be trouble. If Ming Ho got angry, they might not even be able to keep their lives. Ming Ho used his golden claws to pick up the Gong Tsang armor and looked at it with disgust. This broken thing is not even half as thick as my phosphor armor. It costs 135 million void crystals. Are you trying to fool me? 50 million void crystals at most. 200 million void crystals short. Ming Ho muttered and took away the Gong Tsang armor, not giving the three Blood Might brothers any chance to refute. Blood Might raised his head, his eyes were bigger than copper bells, and his mouth was wide open for a long time. He had never seen such a shameless 9-star expert. Hurry up, I still have things to do. You guys are dawdling. Don't tell me you want to renege on your debt. Ming Ho slammed his golden claws with great power, smashing the 9-star mission hall into pieces. The three Blood Might brothers wanted to cry, but had no tears. They were now meat on the chopping block, and they could only hand over their true treasures one by one. 20 million void crystals? This broken thing is worth at most 8 million void crystals. 45 million void crystals? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Let me tell you, don't quote randomly. Do you think I don't understand prices? Even 15 million void crystals is too much for this thing. Hurry up. If you don't have anything else, take off those golden underpants for this king. After a full 3 hours of torment, Ming Ho left contentedly. Just the three of you, and you want to fool me, Humph. He finally collected his debts and was in a good mood, leaving the three naked Blood Might brothers behind, their faces dead. More than half of the true treasures of the three 8-star experts were taken away, especially the Blood Might brothers, who had the most true treasures. Meng Ta Island, Space Secret Realm. A full 5 months passed. Lin Feng had constantly used the chaotic space technique, allowing him to gain many insights into the chaotic space laws. After all, if he focused on cultivating, using, and comprehending the chaotic space laws was extremely efficient. Although he still had not found the location of the exit, Lin Feng was not worried. As long as he continued to use it, the location of the exit would appear sooner or later. My space aptitude is also average. In the future, I can learn warm to disrupt space and win in other aspects. Lin Feng knew himself very well. Whether it was the Tao of soul or close combat, the Tao of law was better than the Tao of space. In a battle between experts, weakness was one aspect, but strength was more important. Using force to break through the Tao was like this. Swish! The space in front of him was chaotic. Now that Lin Feng could control a larger area, it also proved that his understanding of chaotic space was getting deeper. However, it was still a long time before he could understand it. Whoosh! Suddenly, a sparkling light spot appeared in the void. Lin Feng let out a soft, "Oh," and entered with his consciousness. He instantly realized that the other side of the light spot was the exit he had been looking for, Space Secret Realms, second level. Finally found it. Lin Feng smiled. He wrapped the warm wings and stepped in directly. Chapter 1952. I'm back. Lin Feng's figure flashed as he stepped into a new spatial zone. His entire body was covered in black wings. It was a perfect defense, looking like a black cocoon. One had to be wary of others. If Ming Ho was still there, with his spatial perception, he would be attacked the moment he came out. He had to set up his defense. Warm Wing Guard's defense was not inferior to Mo Xianbo's, especially since Mo Xianbo's defense had not reached its peak. In front of him, it was not as good as Warm Wing Guard. He's not here. Lin Feng's black wings spread out slowly as he scanned the surroundings. After leaving for nearly a year, the second level of the Space Secret Realm had basically been restored to its original state. There were no traces of a battle, and the overflowing spatial energy was everywhere, making one feel refreshed. It's a pity. In fact, Lin Feng still wanted to fight with Ming Ho again. In the previous battle, he had won with an unfair advantage. After ambushing Ming Ho, he beat him up and then left. He should be recuperating and recovering his strength. Lin Feng stepped on the profound light shuttle and sped away. In the previous battle, Ming Ho had used his innate killer move, which had caused great damage to his body. It was definitely a self-inflicted loss. He would not stay here any longer. He was probably recuperating in some corner of Origin Enlightened Sea. Swoosh! Swoosh! The profound light shuttle was extremely fast. It's difficult to find Ming Ho. Lin Feng casually searched the second level of the Space Secret Realm before returning to the first level. He searched the entire Mengta Island before leaving the Space Secret Realm. He did not find anything. The 3 8-star experts who were in cahoots with each other were also gone. Consider yourselves lucky. You can live for another 2 years. Lin Feng returned to the second level of the Space Secret Realm and continued to cultivate. He could not miss such an excellent cultivation environment. 2 years was still a long time. The black vortex could be eaten, but whether or not he could break through depended on luck. Month after month, Lin Feng's black vortex gradually reached saturation. He first absorbed in the third level, then the second level, and finally the first level. Lin Feng did not waste spatial energy. Although the first level's spatial energy was thin, there was a lot of it. Every time, he would absorb quite a bit, and the absorption time would be relatively long. Moreover, even the first level was a spatial secret realm, and the pure spatial energy was incomparable to the outside world. It was just that the third level's black vortex had a bigger appetite, so it didn't seem to absorb much spatial energy. It's been almost 2 years. This time, I have 25 days to cultivate at the Tranquil Heart Lake. It's enough to raise my way of light to great perfection. With my current life level, regardless of whether it's the black vortex's breakthrough or the great perfection of the laws, my life level is enough to step into the 9-star level. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry. Even if the black vortex couldn't transform here, it would be able to break through immediately after returning. Becoming a 9-star expert was only a matter of time for the current him. It was within his reach, and there was no longer any difficulty. His accumulation was already extremely deep, and he was only waiting for the moment to explode. Suddenly, Lin Feng was slightly surprised, and his eyes couldn't help but light up. Someone's coming? On Mengta Island, Lin Feng had left secret light guardians to patrol there. They were also considered supreme treasures, so it was natural for them to sense it. It was best to be careful. No matter how weak the opponent was, it was always a good thing to know beforehand. 3. It should be them. Lin Feng smiled. He hadn't gone to find them, but they had delivered themselves to him. On Mengta Island. Thud, thud, thud. 3 figures passed through a lush forest as if they were walking on flat ground. They were the 3 blood Might brothers. Their expressions were solemn and cautious, and they looked around from time to time, as if they were thieves. However, the strange thing was that they weren't heading in the direction of the spatial secret realm. Instead, they were heading in the opposite direction. It was as if they had other plans. Big Brother is smart. He left some treasures behind, said Peach Arrow. These treasures in the spatial secret realm were originally left for our descendants. The Jade Fox sighed softly. The three of us have been killing all year round and have offended many people. We don't know when we will die. Bloodmite frowned. I didn't expect Ming Ho to be so ruthless. He took almost all of our supreme treasures. Without supreme treasures, with my strength, going to the turbulent void is suicide. Although he had hidden a few key supreme treasures, his armor and boots were all taken away. His strength had been reduced by at least 30%, especially his defense, which had suffered the most damage. These treasures were obtained by chance when we discovered the spatial secret realm, together with our inheritance. Even if we die in the future, our descendants can rise again. But now, Bloodmite's expression was solemn. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to take this step. This trip to the turbulent void is my last chance. I must give it a try. There's no need to take all of them. About 500 million void crystals worth of treasures should be enough. Damn Ming Ho. Bloodmite was furious when he thought about it. They owed Ming Ho only 300 million void crystals, but this guy had taken at least 800 million void crystals. Their loss couldn't be described with just one word. I don't know if he's really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. Peach Arrow was also furious. Those who can become 9-star powerhouses are not to be trifled with. Once bitten, twice shy. Jade Fox shook her head and sighed. No matter what, fortunately, we had a trick up our sleeve. Otherwise, we might have been wiped out by him. If you don't have enough strength, try not to provoke these big shots in the future. They don't even spit out the bones. In the end, with the unlucky ones. Bloodmite's expression was solemn, and his eyes were blood red. So this time, I must go to the turbulent void and break through to become a 9-star powerhouse. Otherwise, I'll have to swallow my pride forever. Only by becoming a 9-star powerhouse can I truly control my own destiny. That's right, Big Brother. Third Brother, and I support you. Jade Fox's eyes were bright. Go, Big Brother. Peach Arrow shouted. Second Brother, and I will wait for you outside. The three of US brothers will do something big together. We'll turn the 8 forces of origin awakened continent into 9. Jade Fox laughed. Third Brother's ambition is higher than mine and Big Brother's. Blood might also laugh involuntarily. It's not that easy. Although he said that, Bloodmite's eyes were shining. A soldier who didn't want to be a general was still a good soldier. He, Bloodmite, had strength and talent, but he didn't lack ambition. Since he had chosen this path, he wouldn't back down. Ming Ho, you can't defeat me, Bloodmite. Bloodmite's eyes were red, and he was full of fighting spirit. Not long after the 3 figures disappeared, a black figure appeared like a ghost. The black wings behind him were extremely eye-catching, and there was a faint smile on his face. Do something big? The 9th force? Lin Feng smiled indifferently. With a light flap of his black wings, his figure disappeared in an instant. A small hill beside him was instantly split into 2 as if it was sliced by a knife. Chapter 1953. We're here. No one would have thought that there would be treasures here. Ha! Mengta Island was barren in the past and had no special mineral resources. The spirit chi here was thin, and even ferocious beasts were rarely seen. If not for the sudden appearance of the spatial secret realm, this island would be no different from an ordinary reef, just slightly bigger. Unexpected events could happen. The 3 Bloodmite brothers did all kinds of evil. In order to earn money, they did all kinds of bad things. They knew that they would be in trouble sooner or later, so they left a backup plan. As the eldest brother, Bloodmite, even tried his best to become a 9-star expert. Only then would they not be afraid of revenge and could truly gain a foothold in Origin Awakened Continent. Inheritance and treasures. Whether it was Bloodmite, Jade Fox, or Peach Arrow, they all had descendants. Their descendants formed a small faction, and the 3 Bloodmite brothers were secretly helping them. but only behind their backs. After all, if their enemies found out, the small faction would instantly be annihilated. Creak! The ground cracked open, revealing an underground passage. The three Blood-Might brothers were familiar with the place. Outside the underground passage, there was a large array to conceal auras, enveloping the entire area. It did not look special at all. Unless one knew that there were treasures here, one would definitely not discover it. But even if one knew that this was a place of treasures, one would not be able to enter. The top of the place of treasures was made of a special material, steel core iron. Even Blood-Might himself could not break open the entrance with all his strength. Only a key could open the entrance. Ka! The key turned, and the underground treasure place let out a creaking sound. "It's open," Peach Arrow said happily. The door opened, and the three Blood-Might brothers entered in a single file, their eyes filled with excitement and joy. As the three entered, the door made of steel core iron closed. On the ground, Lin Feng stood on the crack in the ground, his eyes bright. "Even I can't sense it. It's hidden really well." Lin Feng had been cultivating here for almost 2 years. If not for the three Blood-Might brothers leading the way, he would not have known that there was another world here. He could not help but smile. It did not take much effort to obtain it. A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. They are really careful. Lin Feng's black wings flapped, and he flew downwards. Numerous fine runic patterns appeared, and Lin Feng's speed suddenly increased. Up ahead, there was a grand array in front of them. Lin Feng raised his hand and unleashed a series of spatial distortions. Pa! Space was distorted, and the great formation that was concealing his aura was directly erased. Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he instantly landed. Beneath his feet was the grayish-brown entrance door. Stepping on it felt incomparably heavy. 9-star defensive scorching core iron. Lin Feng's knowledge had increased by a lot now, so he recognized with a single glance that the Tiger Heart iron's value was extraordinary. However, it was still cheaper than the materials used to create supreme treasures. That was because it was too heavy. Just its weight alone was enough to make people feel horrified and helpless. No matter how strong its defense was, it could only be used as a building. He couldn't bear it all. Just in time. "Try my attack." Lin Feng's eyes widened, revealing a hint of battle intent. Underground treasure vault. Rows of treasures and inheritance manuals were lined up neatly. The three Blood-Might brothers were all 8-star experts and 9-star adventurers. They were extremely wealthy. Just the treasures they had robbed alone were already numerous. Naturally, the number of ordinary secret manuals they had was innumerable. This one, and this one. Blood-Might quickly finished his selection and took 3 elite true treasures. They were all obtained from the space secret realm and had never been used. After all, taking out 500 million void crystals in one go was a huge prize for Blood-Might. The entire treasure vault, including what he had obtained from the space secret realm, was only worth about 2 billion void crystals. And this was already all the 3 brothers had obtained in endless eras. Green Jade Fox and Peach Arrow naturally had no objection. They were obedient to their big brother, Blood-Might. They also knew that a team must have a leader, and their leader was Blood-Might. It's about time. Blood-Might scanned the secret inheritance room and then landed on the treasures. After that, he looked at the manuals again. He had deep feelings for this place. I will definitely become a 9-star great being. Blood-Might secretly made up his mind, and his fighting spirit was high. Suddenly, the entire treasure vault shook inexplicably, and there seemed to be stones and soil collapsing from above. What's going on? The 3 Blood-Might brothers were stunned, not understanding what was going on. The shaking soon stopped, and the 3 Blood-Might brothers breathed a sigh of relief. Just as they were about to discuss, another huge tremor sounded, as if the entire treasure vault was going to be turned upside down. That power was too terrifying. If not for the amazing defense of the steel core, it might have really collapsed. Not good. Someone is coming. Damn it. He must be following us. The 3 Blood-Might brothers reacted quickly and knew what was going on, but they didn't have time to take any action or make any decision. The next second, Hong, There was a huge tremor. It was the sound of metal objects colliding. The stones and soil above collapsed, and a big hole was blasted in the 9-star defense of the steel core. Who? Bloodmite's expression changed greatly. A white light flashed, and Lin Feng arrived on the profound light shuttle. Facing the three, his black wings flapped with an oppressive pressure, and his eyes were deep. We finally meet. Lin Feng completely blocked the three Blood Might brothers' way. Finally we meet? The three Blood Might brothers were dumbfounded. They had never seen this human youth in front of them. Who are you? A blood-red aura condensed around Blood Might's body. Those who came did not come with good intentions, and those with good intentions did not come. His many years of experience told him that this seemingly ordinary human youth in front of him was very dangerous. The calmer he was, the scarier he was. Me? Lin Feng smiled. Am I not the person you have been plotting to kill? What? You think you can stay out of this by letting Dark Roar kill me? Aren't you too naive? Lin Feng flapped his black wings. At this time, he was like the smile of a demon, making the three Blood Might brothers' hair stand on end. Although these words were understated, each word was like a gem, containing too much information. Dark Roar. Now, if they still did not know Lin Feng's identity, they would really be as stupid as Dark Roar. You are the buyer. The Jade Fox's expression was ugly. She looked at Lin Feng with fear and unconsciously took a step back. His aura was completely suppressed. I didn't expect Dark Roar to not be able to kill you. Blood Might was extremely shocked, but he did not show it on his face. Only his back was cold. A terrifying expert that even Dark Roar could not kill. Right now, they had even found their way to their lair and trapped them there. His motive was clear. If you walk by the river often, how can your shoes not be wet? If you want to blame someone, blame yourselves for being too greedy. Lin Feng's gaze swept over them. His black wings flapped, and a light appeared in his hands. Now, you can die in peace. Whoosh, the 5-colored light shone, and the entire area was instantly enveloped. The three Blood Might brothers' expressions changed drastically, and they were in deep trouble. Brahma Domain. Chapter 1954. 1 against 3. In terms of strength, the three Blood Might brothers were not bad. Since they could become 9-star adventurers, they were not mediocre people. Especially Blood Might, who was a top-notch 8-star powerhouse. Compared to Tan Xiao Xiao, whom Lin Feng had defeated in the Calming Heart world, he was 1 level stronger. However, his equipment had been stripped by Ming Ho, and his strength had been reduced by 30%. His defense was even worse, reduced by more than half. Blood Might's strength was only at the same level as Tan Xiao Xiao. As for Jade Fox and Peach Arrow, their combined strength was weaker than Blood Might's. Lin Feng's strength had increased by more than a few times compared to when he had defeated Tan Xiao Xiao. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio. The 5-colored brilliance of the Brahma domain fully demonstrated the power of the space domain. The domain of an excellent true treasure was much stronger than that of an elite true treasure. However, the white light only flashed weakly, and the domain was restrained. It was difficult for him to even protect himself. Excellent true treasure. Blood Might's expression was terrible. In a situation where the strength was equal, a domain was a terrifying existence. It could weaken the enemy and strengthen oneself. The difference in strength would be widened. Jade Fox and Peach Arrow were weak and had no domain true treasures. They were like fish on a chopping block. Pung, pung, pung. Above the Brahma domain, the 5-colored light condensed into 3 palms and slapped down. Jade Fox and Peach Arrow groaned and were instantly slapped to the ground. Blood Might suddenly exploded, but they could only barely resist. Although it was only an additional attack of the domain, it had the power of an 8-star elite. It was useless against a 9-star elite, but against an 8-star elite, such an attack was already very strong. Go to hell. Blood Might gritted his teeth, but he also had a trump card. He had a domain true treasure to protect him. Although he couldn't break the Brahma domain, he wasn't restricted much. His hands flashed with black needles, shooting out like a rain of flowers. The green needles were like the needles on a wasp's tail. Chi, chi, chi. They were aimed at his vital points from all directions. Just one needle, and I'll kill you. Bloodmite had relied on this elite true treasure to avert many dangers. He basically never used it, but when he did, it was always a big crisis. The seemingly insignificant needles were all highly poisonous. But this time he met Lin Feng. Insanity. With a flap of his black wings, the space around Lin Feng suddenly became chaotic, and the tiny needles that filled the sky were directly sucked into the spatial turbulence. Compared to the spatial shattering that Yu Ho had used that day, it was even more powerful. If the space was shattered, the treasures could still be recalled. However, if the space was in disorder, it would take a lot of effort to retrieve them. How is this possible? The Bloodmite stared in disbelief at his killer move, which had been countered so easily. In the next moment, a white stream of light flashed in front of him. It arrived at the speed of light, leaving behind afterimages. The Eclipse Mystic Civ Saber, complemented by the profound light shuttle's 3 sections flow, revealed its extraordinary power. Chi. Cleanly and efficiently, Lin Feng removed the Brahma domain and destroyed it himself. However, what replaced it was the pinnacle of the graceful light shuttle's 3-section style, which directly killed the shocked Bloodmites. No, I haven't entered the turbulent void yet. I haven't become a 9-star expert yet. The Bloodmite's eyes were bloodshot as he let out an unwilling roar. However, his vitality was rapidly depleting. The appearance of the young man holding the saber was deeply etched in his mind. The Bloodmite was filled with regret. He shouldn't have. He knew that this human had a powerful background and that it was very dangerous, but he still took the risk out of desperation. First, Yuho took drastic measures to deal with him. Then, this human, who was even more terrifying than Yuho, even found his nest. All his efforts over the endless eras were about to vanish, along with his dream of becoming an expert. How could one not wet their shoes if they walked by the river often? I can't accept this. The Bloodmite died with his eyes wide open and fell to the ground. The Jasper Fox's face was pale, and her eyes were filled with endless indignation. She was hysterical, but she couldn't escape the fate of death either. Chi. It was the same saber. The Jasper Fox could clearly see it, but she couldn't dodge it. There was retribution for harming so many people. Spare my life. The Peach Arrow was so scared that his soul had left his body. He knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. Beads of sweat kept flowing out. He had seen everything with his own eyes. This human youth, who was like a divine soldier descending from the sky, was more than terrifying. It was simply horrifying. Big Brother and Second Brother were killed as soon as they met. Moreover, this human youth had survived Yuho's claws. The Peach Arrow didn't understand before, but he understood now. Strength. They had offended someone they shouldn't have. Chi. The boundless blood-red color swallowed the Peach Arrow. The blood-red skeleton condensed in the void and made clacking sounds. Lin Feng didn't even use the Eclipse Mystic Civ Saber. The skeleton killed the Peach Arrow directly. Spare his life? Lin Feng had never been a merciful person. Moreover, what was the use of keeping scum like this who had violated the law and harmed so many people? Too weak. Lin Feng put away the skeleton. The black wings also flashed with black light and went back into his body. The 3 8-star experts turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. Compared to Yuho, such a battle is meaningless. Lin Feng still wanted to fight with Yuho again. This was because he was much stronger now than when he was in the space mystic realm. He didn't need to play any tricks to compete with Yuho. He should be recuperating on an island in the Origin Enlightened Ocean. Lin Feng didn't hate Yuho. He had been entrusted by others and was loyal to them. Even if the 3 Bloodmite brothers didn't find Yuho, they would find other experts. Every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. Moreover, Yuho had used his unique talent to open the entrance to the 3rd level of the space mystic realm. Just this wings of warmth alone is worth the price of the ticket. Lin Feng was very satisfied. The Wings of Warmth's power was infinite. Compared to all the outstanding true treasures, it was a top-notch existence. Just its two basic abilities were already outstanding. For example, the space disorder just now was actually the same as using the Wings of Warmth's protection. With the absolute defense of the Wings of Warmth, the rain of poisonous needles couldn't cause any harm to him. The Wings of Warmth was perfect. Turbulent void. When the time comes, all the 9-star experts will enter and find opponents there. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. Now, he was invincible below the 9-star level. He could even compete with 9-star experts. When he broke through to the 9-star level, his strength would increase tremendously. Soon, I will step into the forest of true top-notch experts. Lin Feng smiled confidently. His gaze swept across the entire treasury. He wouldn't waste it. It would be a waste not to take something that was given to him for free. His body flashed into a stream of light, shuttling through the treasury and putting away all the inheritances and treasures collected by the three blood might brothers over the endless epochs. Very quickly, the treasury was empty. Right, and their interspatial rings. Lin Feng raised his hand, and 6 interspatial rings appeared in his hand. Just the Blood Might brothers alone had 3 interspatial rings. Let's see what's inside. Chapter 1955. Elite Treasures, Potions, and Divine Water. Oh, the treasures in this spatial ring are not bad. The 3 Blood Might brothers are quite rich. This is... Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Suddenly, a light flashed in his hand, and a huge key appeared. It was simple and mysterious, with strange engravings on it, containing mysterious energy. It was the key to the Void Gate. The second one. Lin Feng smiled. If he knew that he could get the key to the Void Gate, he wouldn't have bought it that day. The price of this key alone was raised to more than 7 billion void crystals, and there was no supply. Judging from past signs, the turbulent void would open in 10 years at most. The price of the key was even higher. Lin Feng didn't know that Blood Might was exploited by Ming Ho in order to protect the key to the Void Gate. Otherwise, Blood Might wouldn't have compromised and even gave his armor to Ming Ho, which greatly reduced his defense. If Ming Ho wasn't satisfied that day, he would have snatched Blood Might's spatial ring. Therefore, Blood Might didn't dare to take the risk. After all, there was nothing he wouldn't do. Seeing the key to the Void Gate quoted a purchase price of 10 million void crystals, Blood Might couldn't help but vomit blood. However, pure defensive armors, such as battle helmets and boots, were replaceable and had a high damage rate. Lin Feng damaged several of them in the Destiny Boundary that day, but it was nothing. However, Blood Might didn't have time to replace them before Lin Feng caught him. Otherwise, he might have been able to use some of his strength. Unlike now, he could kill with a single slash. I've gained a lot. Lin Feng quickly finished counting all the treasures. There were so many inheritances, not counting the ordinary treasures, but counting the treasures worth more than 1 million void crystals. There are almost 3 billion void crystals, plus a key to the Void Gate. The total value is 7 billion void crystals, right? That's rich. Lin Feng sighed. He didn't expect the 3 Blood Might brothers to be so rich. Although they were not as rich as him, there were only 3 8-star powerhouses after all. An ordinary 8-star powerhouse like Gong Lai, including the treasures on him, would only have 600 or 700 million void crystals, which was considered good. Including Misty Cloudmaster, they were considered relatively wealthy among the 8-star powerhouses. The poorer 8-star experts would have a net worth of around 100 to 300 million void crystals. The average ones would have around 300 to 600 million void crystals, and the rich ones would have around 6 to 1 billion void crystals. Alright, they were the ones who discovered the Void Crystal Secret Realm. Lin Feng smiled. The treasures in the space-sealed realm were worth more than 1 billion void crystals, and with the Void Gate key, strictly speaking, the 3 Blood Might brothers had less than 2 billion void crystals. 600 million void crystals per person was not a small amount, but it was not a lot either. Lin Feng naturally did not know that the Blood Might brothers had just been extorted by Ming Ho. Otherwise, the assets of the three brothers could be considered top-notch among the 8-star powerhouses. After all, they had robbed and plundered, committed all kinds of crimes, and were 9-star adventurers. Naturally, they were rich. Of course, all of this was now in Lin Feng's hands. Space secret realms were very rich, especially the first to eat crabs. It was even more profitable. Lin Feng was the first to enter the 3rd floor and earn the most. Just the warm wings alone, if auctioned, could easily fetch a price of more than 10 billion void crystals. Any force would use all their strength to bid for such a treasure. The space-sealed realm is just a part of the turbulent void. The real turbulent void is the place where the great treasures are. Opportunities, treasures, ancient inheritances, everything is there. Every time the turbulent void opens, it will bring out endless treasures and baptize the power structure of the Origin Awakening continent. Very interesting. Lin Feng stepped on the profound light shuttle and left the underground treasure vault. With a flash of white light, the treasure vault was directly destroyed. The 3 Bloodmite brothers had left behind these inheritances as a backup plan. Since he had killed them, there was no need to keep them for them. Well, I'll go back to the space-sealed realm to cultivate for a while and see if there are any accomplices. 2 years had not passed yet, so Lin Feng was not in a hurry. If he went back now, he would cultivate in the Tranquil Heart Lake, which would not have much effect on him now. His 11 nomological grandaos were all close to perfection, and he only needed one place at the moment, Tranquil Heart Lake. If I have enough time, I can even raise all of them to perfection. Lin Feng grunted. It was very difficult to increase the usage time of the Tranquil Heart Lake. Usually, it was bestowed by the Patriarch or exchanged for contribution points. Exchange with contribution points? I'll raise it to 9 stars as soon as possible. The usage time of a 9-star Tranquil Heart Lake is much longer than an 8-star one. Lin Feng quickly returned to the space-sealed realm. However, the spatial energy of the 2nd and 3rd layers had been completely absorbed. Although the 1st layer was full of spatial energy, the concentration was too low and the absorption was still a bit slow. Of course, this was relative to the Black Vortex. Lin Feng's life returned to peace. Month after month, the absorption of the Black Vortex gradually came to an end. Because the 1st layer of spatial energy had been consumed by more than half, the absorption speed had greatly decreased. There are still 3 months left. The Black Vortex will not be able to break through. Lin Feng was very clear. The spatial energy needed to break through to the 3rd stage was more than expected. However, it did not matter. He could find another space-sealed realm when the time came. He could even directly absorb spatial crystals, but that was too extravagant. Moreover, it was not necessary to go from the 3rd to the 4th stage. It was irreplaceable. Since the Black Vortex cannot break through for now, I might as well refine the Nightmare Blood Crystal first. Lin Feng took out the super treasure from the Nether Race's hell. He had spent a total of 6 billion spatial crystals to obtain it at the Azure Dragon auction house. This was the essence of a nightmare demon that had grown to its peak. Dark demon treasures had 3 main uses. First, it could strengthen the dark bloodline or split it into clones. Lin Feng did not need clones, but it was very useful to improve the dark bloodline. Second, it could improve the dark talent, especially the dark demon Dao. It could not only improve the source energy in dark talent, but also reach perfection in the dark demon Dao after refining the Nightmare Blood Crystal. Third, there were side effects. To Lin Feng, the side effects were completely negligible. It's time to refine it. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. After all, things like the Tranquil Heart Lake and the space-sealed realm could only be found by chance. However, the Nightmare Blood Crystal was already in his hands and could be refined at any time. Since he had some free time, he would not waste it. Schwa, his hands touched the Nightmare Blood Crystal. Instantly, an endless dark demon aura appeared. An illusion gathered in his mind. A fierce and ruthless nightmare demon appeared in front of him, roaring as if it wanted to devour everything. With a clear mind, Lin Feng was not affected at all. Compared to the evil demon Su of the Wings of Warmth, it is far inferior. Lin Feng's lips curled up. The dark tattoos on the surface of his body were incomparably clear. They flowed and flowed with a mysterious luster, containing the ultimate mysteries of the universe. Endless energy from the nightmare blood crystal poured into his body. Lin Feng absorbed it without restraint. It was as if his entire body was immersed in a sea of dark demon laws. The dark magic was reflected in his mind bit by bit. There was no need to comprehend it. It was directly bestowed upon him. Chapter 1956. Is this the talent of the special life form Wu Nightmare? Lin Feng sighed. Be it Wu Nightmare or Wu Nightmare, these special life forms were indeed heaven-defying and envied by others. However, special life forms were special life forms in the end. There were pros and cons. The heavens were very fair. They gave them heaven-defying talents, but they also took away a lot of them. Just the fact that they couldn't reproduce meant that it was difficult for special life forms to rise. The truly powerful ones in Origin Awakened continent were the 5 races and 8 factions, not the special life forms. Hiss, the pure dark devil energy, the essence of the nightmare devil, entered his body along with the nightmare devil blood crystal, silently changing his body. It merged with his cells and condensed on his skin, causing the dark devil tattoos to constantly shine. That feeling was very strange. It was like drawing strokes after strokes on the mark of life, causing life to become more colorful. As one's bloodline improved, the divine patterns of light and the devil patterns of darkness became even more complex and mysterious. They contained the origin of the universe's laws. When one comprehended one of the laws to perfection, it would make the patterns even more intricate and complex. Every time his bloodline improved, the light demon runes and dark demon runes would undergo a fundamental transformation. Right now, the light demon runes were dozens of times more complex than the dark demon runes. The energy and aura it contained completely suppressed the dark demon runes. The dark demon runes' aura rapidly expanded and rose. It wasn't that the dark demon runes had surpassed the light demon runes, but that they were shining brightly. It was like a contestant performing on stage. Although she might not be stronger than the contestants below the stage, she was the center of attention. It's worth it. Lin Feng fully immersed himself in this strange feeling, especially the in-depth analysis of the dark demon Tao. He perfectly received the origin laws. It was even more thorough and direct than his own comprehension. The same perfection had different levels. It was like an exam. If you did some questions many times, you would naturally know how to do them. However, some questions were completely understood and were already familiar with them. Lin Feng's comprehension of the light demon Tao was similar to the first one. The dark demon Tao he was comprehending now was the second one. He analyzed every bit of the dark demon Tao and analyzed its essence. Perhaps they were both at the perfection realm and the power was the same, but Lin Feng knew that there was definitely a difference. It could be the subsequent cultivation, the future evolution, the cultivation of secret techniques, the fusion of the Tao, and so on. Different. There must be something different. In Calming Heart Lake, I can actually continue cultivating the Tao of light speed. Lin Feng originally thought that his Tao of light speed had reached perfection and that he had completely comprehended it. But from the looks of it, there was still a long way to go. He only understood a realm called Great Perfection, which was similar to the fusion of the entire sea of laws. However, how many water droplets, how many structures, and how many variations were there in the sea of laws? It was too huge. The entire Tao of laws was like a giant chessboard. There were billions of chess pieces on the chessboard, forming a complex and ever-changing game. Cultivating the Tao of laws from zero to perfection was like comprehending the Tao of laws step by step. The Great Perfection stage did not mean that he had completely mastered it, but that he had completely grasped the rules or laws of the entire sea of laws. Knowing how to play the game, knowing the structure of the whole game, and being able to freely assemble the pieces, unleash the power of the chessboard, and interpret the charm of the game. Everyone understood. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. It was as if he had opened a new world, and he was filled with many emotions. He knew that he had truly come into contact with the mysteries of the Tao of Laws. He had seen the key to surpassing the master of the Black region. His future path of improvement was much stronger and more complicated than he had imagined. The universe was vast, and its power was immense and endless. The vast majority of experts were frogs in a well. One step at a time. First, fully comprehend the Tao of Dark Demon and reach the great perfection stage. In addition, I can truly comprehend the foundation of a Tao of Laws and analyze it from its source. Lin Feng completely calmed down. At first, he thought that the most precious thing about the Nightmare Blood Crystal was that it could raise the Tao of Dark Demon to great perfection and step into the 9-star realm. Later, he discovered that the most precious thing about the Nightmare Blood Crystal was that it could raise the bloodline. But now, he discovered that the most precious thing about the Nightmare Blood Crystal was that it could perfectly interpret every drop of the Tao of Dark Demon. The more solid his foundation was, the smoother his future development would be. Boundless. Lin Feng was completely immersed in comprehending the Tao of Dark Demon. Every drop of the Tao of Laws was reflected in the Tao of Dark Demon, causing his understanding of the Tao of Dark Demon to become deeper and deeper. In fact, 2 months ago, Lin Feng had already felt that his Tao of Dark Demon could reach the great perfection stage. With the comprehension of the Tao of Light and the experience of the wall-breaking point, Lin Feng was very sure. As long as he was willing, he could break through that thin layer, cross the bottleneck, and step into the great perfection stage of Dark Demon. But it was far from enough. Lin Feng still wanted to comprehend more and comprehend all the information about Dark Demon. This was a rare opportunity because he didn't know what would happen after his Tao of Dark Demon reached the great perfection stage. Would he be unable to immerse himself in the Dark Demon blood sea and be unable to comprehend anymore? He wasn't willing to gamble. Reaching the great perfection stage a bit later wouldn't affect him much. After comprehending for 2 months and 10 days, a powerful aura spread throughout his body. It was like a singularity that had reached the limit of saturation, unable to contain any more energy. However, the essence of the Nightmare Blood Crystal continued to pour in. It continued to strengthen his bloodline and improve the Dark Demon pattern. At this moment, the Dark Demon pattern was like a blooming flower. Above every Dark Demon pattern, a flower bloomed on a stalk. It was extremely beautiful and bloomed perfectly. Naturally, this wasn't a sign of the Tao of Dark Demon reaching the great perfection stage. A great perfection stage of law, Tao, wouldn't be able to cause such a huge change, especially the change in the aura energy. Previously, Lin Feng didn't control it and gave others the feeling that it was glowing. But now, it was neutralized by a different aura. It was very strange. It's here. Lin Feng smiled with satisfaction. The reason why he bought the Nightmare Blood Crystal that day was because of its unique bloodline enhancement characteristic. Every treasure that enhanced bloodline was very precious. Even if the Nightmare Blood Crystal had huge side effects, it was still sold for an extremely high price. It was worth it. The enhancement of bloodline was fundamental. It was much more important than law comprehension. As long as one had enough comprehension ability, one could completely accumulate law comprehension with time. However, bloodline couldn't. Many experts were stuck at that level because of their bloodline when they cultivated to the limit, unable to improve further. Wah, wah, wah. Streaks of black crystal light shone in the Dark Demon pattern. After absorbing the bloodline to the limit, the essence of the bloodline underwent a fundamental change. The hidden bloodline was stimulated. It was like a genetic change. A wonderful feeling spread throughout the heart. The essence of the power of darkness crashed down like a pillar of light. Endless darkness descended. Lin Feng's eyes passed through a blood-red color. He still maintained his original state, but his aura energy suddenly erupted. Endless darkness shrouded, turning the entire area into hell. Dark Demon Pattern, 3rd Stage. Chapter 1957. The perfect and flawless dark demonic pattern exuded, surging flames and power. After the transformation, it was only a little bit away from the light divine pattern. After all, the light divine pattern had been bestowed by the origin laws because the light speed Tao had reached perfection. However, the two were already on the same level. The dark demonic pattern's secret patterns were complex and contained extreme mysteries. It was not inferior to the light divine pattern at all. Two separate and opposite laws converged into the same bloodline, making Lin Feng look exceptionally strange. However, the black vortex balanced the two types of energy, forming a perfect cycle. Crack, crack. Lin Feng's bones, cells, meridians, skin changed one after another. This was a leap in the level of life, a transformation of genes. The bloodline seed hidden in the depths of his body had completely sprouted. A tall, black-haired figure flashed in his mind. It's here. Lin Feng was not unfamiliar. Every time his bloodline evolved and improved, he would appear. It was like an ancient imprint imprinted in the depths of his soul. It stood tall and upright, supporting the heavens and the earth. The golden armor that was like a divine soldier shone brightly. This time, he appeared more clearly than the previous time. He was taller and more powerful. It was as if he could reach out and touch him. The terrifying aura caused heaven and earth to tremble. However, Lin Feng felt a gentle breeze on his face. He did not feel any pressure at all. It was as if this was a power that belonged to him. So powerful. Lin Feng sighed. Just what kind of existence was this to possess such terrifying power? Even the laws of the world were trembling before it. The light divine pattern was connected to the dark demonic pattern, forming a perfect resonance. Looking at it from a close distance, it felt different. The blood-red saber in the black-haired giant's hand was eye-catching. It was as if it was refined from the spine and flesh of a peerless, ferocious beast. The last time he saw him, he passed the 1,000 obscuring heavenly saber to him. Now, he had only learned a little, but he was already invincible at the 8-star level. If he learned all of it, Lin Feng even felt that he would be invincible in the entire Origin Awakening continent. The saber technique was too terrifying. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a sharp and kind gaze. He was startled. The black-haired giant stood there, holding the blood saber. It was as if he was looking at him through endless time and space. Their eyes met, and his heart beat rapidly. Impossible. Lin Feng was a little dazed. Even if the black-haired giant was his bloodline ancestor, there was no reason for him to still be alive. However, when their eyes met, it was as if he was looking at his own child. "I want Qian," a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Lin Feng was extremely shocked. Traversing the myriad worlds of the universe, living a carefree life, using light and darkness as the source, transcending the great limit, and creating a Tao that belongs to oneself. Light Qian, Qian's Tao, but I Qian Tao. Even if you exhaust your entire life, light will always be light and darkness will always be darkness. The original rules of the universe cannot be defied. With a long sigh, it was as if the heavens and earth had aged a little. The ancient voice of chaos seemed to freeze at that moment. Lin Feng could completely sense the black-haired giant's emotions, as well as the vicissitudes of life and helplessness. However, the path I took wasn't meaningless. Although the Tao of light and darkness isn't an ultimate Tao, it's enough to transcend one's limits and roam the universe freely. After my descendants transcend, they can use the Tao of light and darkness as a foundation to comprehend the Tao of life and death destruction or the Tao of Taiji. These two Taos are ultimate Taos. Don't follow in my footsteps and refuse to turn back. This is my life's work, the Wan Qian Tao. Cultivate this secret technique and fuse the Tao of light and darkness. The voice was vast and boundless, with a hint of lamentation. The vicissitudes of life contained helplessness and insight, as well as unyielding stubbornness. Lin Feng could almost see the stubbornness in the eyes of the black-haired giant. He believed that even if Wan Qian knew that this path wasn't an ultimate Tao, he would still walk it to the end, refuse to turn back until he hit the wall. Other experts might turn back, but Ancestor Wan Qian definitely wouldn't. He would tear down the wall and continue walking. No matter how many times he hit the wall, he wouldn't take even half a step back. This was a feeling. However, he was very sure of it. Perhaps the same blood flows in our bodies. Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, the secret technique, myriad heaven path, had already surged into his mind like a tidal wave, and endless information seemed to fill his mind to the brim. This was the comprehension of ancestor Wan Qian for billions of years. It was even one of the top secret techniques in the universe. He had already comprehended the Tao of light and darkness to the extreme. Light and darkness are polar opposites. It's already difficult to fuse them, and it's even harder to unleash their power. If one wants to cultivate the Tao of fusion to the extreme, it's even more whimsical. However, it was precisely because of this that this was an unknown and powerful path. There was nothing in the universe that was impossible. After an unknown period of time, the endless information was completely imprinted in his mind. The huge comprehension made Lin Feng gasp in amazement. The mystery of the Tao of light and darkness was like a huge painting that was completely laid out in front of him. That was a complete description of the Taos of the two source laws. It was too massive, even though he couldn't understand the mysteries behind it at his level. However, this didn't stop him from knowing how powerful the Wan Qian Tao was. It wasn't an offensive secret technique, but purely a cultivation secret technique. However, it was already extremely precious. This was because the Wan Qian Tao cultivated the Tao of light and darkness. It was exactly the same as what he had chosen. When one cultivated it to the extreme, they would be able to surpass their limits and become the ruler of the universe. However, the cultivation requirements were extremely high. To cultivate the first scroll, the 6 Taos of light and the 6 Taos of darkness must all be at great perfection. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Just this requirement alone was something that most cultivators couldn't hope to achieve. However, it wasn't really that difficult for him, who possessed ancestor Wan Qian's bloodline. To cultivate the second scroll, the 12 Taos must reach 100,000 origin realm. To cultivate the third scroll, Lin Feng sighed. After that, he couldn't see it clearly. Even if he could see it clearly, he wouldn't be able to understand it. It was like an illiterate person reading a heavenly book. To him, the Wan Qian Tao was extraordinarily difficult. He didn't even have the right to cultivate the first scroll. However, this path was definitely terrifyingly powerful. To surpass the limit. Although I don't know what the limit is, ancestor Wan Qian's knowledge is far greater than mine. Although the Tao of light and darkness isn't an ultimate Tao, it's already at the peak below the ultimate Tao. I'm still far from surpassing the limit. There's no need to think about what I cultivate in the future so early. Right now, I might as well follow what ancestor Wan Qian said and use the Tao of light and darkness as a foundation to reach the limit first. I have ancestor Wan Qian's bloodline and the secret technique, the Wan Qian Tao. There shouldn't be a problem. Lin Feng was overjoyed. He had never thought that the breakthrough of his bloodline would bring such a pleasant surprise. It was completely unexpected. Moreover, there was more than one pleasant surprise. Chapter 1958. Body, Second Transformation. When he received the information from the myriad heaven path that was as vast as the ocean, Lin Feng's body had already undergone a tremendous change. The increase in his bloodline caused his life level, which was already at the critical point, to undergo a unique transformation. Originally, he only needed to comprehend one more origin source law to break through the limit. But now, the sublimation of his bloodline was enough. Even if he hadn't comprehended any origin source law, Lin Feng had absolute confidence that with the perfect sublimation of his bloodline, the accumulation of his life level was enough. Even if his bloodline wasn't number 1 in the entire Origin Awakened continent, it was at least top 3. Stronger than special life forms. My body feels very hungry. Lin Feng took out the fruits of heaven and earth and ate them one by one. The fruits of heaven and earth that he had purchased at the Heavenly Tea Pavilion had already been saturated, allowing his body to reach the limit of 8 stars. In this way, the enhancement of his body's transformation could be maximized. Now that he had just stepped into 9 stars, his body had already reached an unimaginable level, strengthened by dozens of times. At the limit of 8 stars, my body's strength was comparable to a 9-star powerhouse. Now, I'm afraid it can be compared to a special life form like Ming Ho, who was born with a strong body. Lin Feng smiled. Ming Ho's body was like a natural treasure, incomparably powerful. It was the same for him now. Lin Feng could feel that his bones, cells, and skin had become terrifyingly tough. Under the condensation of the light god pattern and the dark god pattern, they had formed a perfect body. Even if he stood here, an ordinary 8-star powerhouse would find it difficult to hurt him. Moreover, because his body had been strengthened to the limit before the breakthrough, coupled with the blessing of his bloodline, the limit of his 9-star body was much higher than that of ordinary 9-star powerhouses. It was like a tougher bag, able to bear more weight. His life level had completely sublimated. His every move already had a strong pressure. Especially Lin Feng's soul was strong, so the pressure was even stronger. Coupled with his astonishing physical defense, no one below 9 stars was a threat. He was already standing at the top of Origin Awakened Continent. Or rather, he had stepped into the limit of the Black Region Master, where the cage was. The next step was to break the cage, surpass the Black Region Master, and truly dominate the universe. That would be a whole new level. When one reached that level, not only would he be stronger, but he would also have a broader vision. Moreover, he would be able to step into the universe macro world. He believed that when he faced the decline of the Milky Way super black hole and the destruction of the Milky Way galaxy, he would be able to solve the problem. I have to be quick. I don't have much time left. Although Lin Feng had reached 9 stars, he still didn't dare to stop. The limit of 10,000 eras pressed down upon him at all times. Now, a third of it had already passed, and he had less and less time left. However, he could not rush to increase his strength. He could only do his best. His life level had undergone a great leap. Coupled with the transformation of his bloodline, Lin Feng's abilities had undergone a complete transformation. Just the absorption of nightmare blood crystals alone was more than 10 times faster than before. A large amount of information was received at an extremely fast speed. That was the complete source of the Dark Devil Law. Bit by bit, it gathered in his heart, forming an entire blood-colored sea. As he comprehended the entire blood sea, the nightmare blood crystal's energy slowly dimmed. Great! Lin Feng's current cultivation level was much higher than that of the Absolute Circle. The point of breaking the wall was no longer an obstacle to him. With a thought, he could directly break it. The dark demonic runes that had just undergone a transformation began to change slowly. Some strange branches and flowers were added, making the mysterious runes even more gorgeous and mysterious. Dark Devil Law, Absolute Circle. So, after Absolute Circle, there are 100,000 source points. Lin Feng could clearly feel that the Lightspeed Dao could only see the enormous law ocean. If he shrunk it and looked at it, the Absolute Circle was just a dot, the top of the cone. Grasping it was indeed equivalent to grasping the entire law Dao. One could clearly comprehend it and easily use any secret technique. At the bottom of the cone were 100,000 source points. They converged into a circle connected to each other. Each source point was connected to the other 99,999 source points, and there were invisible law lines connecting them. Countless source points, countless source lines, formed an incomparably complex network, dissecting the foundation of the law origin. Further down, there were billions of even smaller specks of light, but Lin Feng was unable to see them at all. He could only vaguely sense them. Although his mastery of the Dark Devil Law was already very high, surpassing Absolute Circle, he still had not reached 100,000 source points, which was the requirement for the second volume of the Myriad Heaven Path. There should be 2 major steps to reaching 100,000 source points. The first step is to dissect the 100,000 source points of the Law Dao. The second step is to connect the 100,000 source points to form the bottom of the cone. It was clear whether it was powerful or not. At Absolute Circle, the power of the origin laws was only the topmost point. No matter how refined it was, no matter how powerful a secret technique was created, it would only increase the power of that point. However, 100,000 Origin Realm experts formed an entire all of laws. Just the quantity alone made the difference between heaven and earth. However, before reaching 100,000 source points, it was no different from absolute circle. Even if the 100,000 source points at the bottom of the cone were completely dissected, it would only make it easier to create secret techniques and comprehend them better. However, the power would be the same as at absolute circle, because it would not be able to form cone. Only by connecting the 100,000 source points and forming a true whole could one reach 100,000 source points. A casual strike would be able to crush someone at absolute circle. It was just too difficult. Reaching absolute circle was already very difficult. Reaching 100,000 source points was even more difficult. This had already surpassed the level of the master of the Black region. The first volume of the Myriad Heaven Path requires everyone to reach absolute circle, and the second volume requires everyone to reach 100,000 source points. Lin Feng sighed. Ancestor Wangan's cultivation was just too high. Although the legacy he left behind was powerful, it was not easy to cultivate it. However, if I can successfully cultivate it, its power will be even more shocking. Every effort was equal to a reward. Lin Feng knew very well that the Myriad Heaven Path created by Ancestor Wangan was a supreme secret technique that could allow one to surpass the limits of the universe. The future would be bright with this legacy. It's about time. Let's return to the clan. Lin Feng wrapped up in satisfaction. Even though the Black Vortex was still unable to break through to the fourth stage, he no longer cared about it. The reason why he wanted to break through the Black Vortex was because he was afraid he would not be able to balance the light and darkness bloodlines and achieve fusion. The stronger the Black Vortex, the easier it would be to control the light and darkness bloodlines, and the more powerful they would be. But now, the first volume of the Myriad Heaven Path contains the basic method of fusing light and darkness. Lin Feng smiled and left the spatial secret realm. Chapter 1959. Lin Feng returned to the Tranquil Heart Realm. The peaceful, tranquil heart realm didn't have an amazing density of spirit energy or rich space energy like the Destiny realm. However, it had an unparalleled tranquil heart lake that nurtured 108 tranquil heart ponds. Stepping onto this land, Lin Feng felt a sense of tranquility. With his current strength, the density of spirit energy wasn't that important anymore. It had long surpassed the accumulation of quantity. What he needed to improve now was his comprehension and realm, as well as the transformation of his life level. After all, Lin Feng's sensing ability and comprehension were already very strong, especially after the Dark Mageweth reached the third stage. His bloodline merged into one. Not only did his dark talent improve, but his light and dark talents also reached an extremely high level. It was flawless. Therefore, he touched the mark of Ancestor Wan Qian in his bloodline. Lord Lin, Sr. In the Tranquil Heart Realm, some ordinary clansmen could be seen from time to time. They all bowed respectfully to Lin Feng. 8-star strength and the owner of number 20 Tranquil Heart Pond were enough to prove Lin Feng's strength. Even among the 8-star clansmen, Lin Feng was an upper-level powerhouse. The battle with Tan Xiao had already made Lin Feng famous. Ordinary clansmen didn't dare to be disrespectful at all. With Lin Feng's strength, he could actually take on some positions in the clan. However, he had just joined the clan and was unfamiliar with many aspects. Therefore, Shi Dingshan didn't make any arrangements. Moreover, in Dong Wang and Shi Dingshan's opinion, the most suitable thing for Lin Feng now was to let him cultivate alone. This was because Lin Feng had always done this. What the human race of the Milky Way needed more were top powerhouses. As for the clan's affairs, they were secondary. Should I go to the contribution tower first, or the clan leader's place? Lin Feng looked calm and completely concealed his aura. His soul was already extremely strong. Only a few 9-star powerhouses could see through him. Now, if Lin Feng deliberately concealed his aura, even a few 9-star powerhouses wouldn't be able to see through him. At most, They could vaguely make a judgment based on their senses. Hide his strength? Lin Feng didn't think about it. There was nothing wrong with becoming a 9-star expert, and there was no need to hold back. According to what Brothershire said, the stronger one is, the higher one's position in the clan will be, and the more power one will enjoy. Of course, the responsibility will also be heavier. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't care about the responsibility on his shoulders, because that was what he had always done. Let's go to the patriarch's place first. It's closer. Lin Feng went in the direction of Ningxin Lake, which was also where the number 1 Ningxin pool was located. It was where the patriarch of Dongwang Palace cultivated. The clan leader once mentioned that if I can break through and become a 9-star expert, the clan will give me more resources and treasures. I don't need anything else. I just need a larger quota for Calming Heart Lake. Lin Feng didn't have much need for treasures at the moment. Now that he had the wings of Brahma's genial nature, he still needed to study and cultivate it. As for the other outstanding true treasures, he still had the Moyu boat and the Moyu boat, which were more than enough for him to use. Even the profound light shuttle and the skeleton demon could unleash power that was infinitely close to that of an outstanding true treasure. This was because the two were perfectly compatible. The brilliant light shuttle was the Tao of light speed, while the skeleton demon was the Tao of dark devil. At the moment, these two Tao of law had already reached the great perfection. One is the quota for Calming Heart Lake, and the other is the schedule for the new round of Calming Heart Lake next year. I'll try to arrange it as early as possible. Lin Feng knew that the turbulent void could open at any time, and each round of quota for Calming Heart Lake had a period of 10 years. There was a big difference between arranging it early and arranging it late, especially at this critical moment. I was only an 8-star expert before, so I was not as important as a 9-star expert. But now it's different. Lin Feng was very confident that he could get what he wanted from Dongwang. Although he didn't have much seniority, Dongwang was not the kind of person who looked at seniority. He would see what decision was more beneficial to the clan. Ningxin Square. This was a place for the clansmen to rest and relax. There were all kinds of entertainment facilities, good wine and food, and even gatherings and celebrations. The number of clansmen gathered here was the largest. After all, it was impossible to just cultivate for a long time. That would be too boring. Only a few cultivation maniacs would do that. Most people like to strike a balance between work and rest. When it was time to cultivate, they would cultivate, and when it was time to enjoy, they would enjoy. Xiao Xiao, cheer up. Isn't it just a drop in the ranking? There's no need to drown your sorrows in alcohol. In an open-air restaurant, Qi Hong was accompanying Tan Xiao Xiao and consoling him from time to time. They were both 8-star experts from the same ancestral bloodline, and their relationship was quite good. Moreover, the owner of this open-air restaurant was King Tsangya. As King Tsangya's disciple, Qi Hong was nominally the owner of this open-air restaurant. He also had a share of the restaurant's profits. Brother Hong, you don't understand. Tan Xiao Xiao let out a long sigh and closed his eyes helplessly. If you don't say it, of course I don't understand. It's just losing a battle. What's the big deal? Qi Hong said, didn't you defeat Li Zhe and get the number 25 Calming Heart Lake? Tan Xiao Xiao shook his head and said, the rumors outside are very unpleasant. They say that I, Tan Xiao Xiao, bully the weak and fear the strong. They say that I only know how to bully clansmen from the same bloodline. Qi Hong revealed a displeased expression and said, what are these people talking about? The ranking of the Calming Heart Lake is based on strength. That Lin Feng is very strong, and he deserves to get the number 20 Calming Heart Lake. That day, Tan Xiao Xiao had given up without a fight, which caused a lot of criticism. The experts who owned the Calming Heart Lake naturally knew that Tan Xiao Xiao had given up strategically. After all, he only had one chance after being defeated, and that was to challenge the clansmen at the bottom. If he failed, he would have to start from scratch again. How could he take the risk? However, the ordinary clansmen didn't understand. In their eyes, Tan Xiao Xiao was a coward. After losing to Lin Feng once, he lost so much that he didn't even have the guts to fight. Sigh, how could I not want to fight with Lin Feng again? Tan Xiao Xiao sighed and said, however, his fighting style just happens to restrain me. Even if I were to fight him 100 times, or even 1,000 times, the result wouldn't change. Qi Hong said, his attacking ability is like a kaleidoscope, and it's impossible to guard against it. Moreover, he has an outstanding treasure to defend against you. After that battle, Qi Hong also knew about that battle. He was the owner of the number 7 Calming Heart Lake and the number 1 expert under the 9-star experts in the Milky Way. Moreover, he was the disciple of the Horizon King. His insight was very high, and he could see the whole picture with just one glance. That's right, Tan Xiaoxiao sighed. Although his control and domain ability are slightly weaker, he is too strong in other aspects. I have no chance of winning against him if he uses force to break through. My attacking power is too weak. Qi Hong patted Tan Xiaoxiao's shoulder and said, make use of the time to increase your attacking power. That Lin Feng isn't really invincible. Teacher estimates that his strength is at most at the level of the number 15 Calming Heart Lake. You still have a chance. Tan Xiaoxiao laughed bitterly and picked up his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. How could it be so easy? Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly saw Qi Hong turn his head and look into the distance. Tan Xiaoxiao was slightly surprised and followed Qi Hong's line of sight. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. It was a familiar figure who was walking over. Lin Feng, Tan Xiaoxiao exclaimed. Chapter 1960. Enemies were bound to meet. Tan Xiaoxiao didn't expect to bump into Lin Feng here. It was fate. It's a pity that I can't challenge in the future. Otherwise, I would still be qualified to challenge for the next 10 years. I can give it a try. Qi Hong's eyes were like torches with traces of battle intent. As the strongest 8-star expert of the Ancestors' bloodline, he naturally had to defend the glory of the Ancestors' bloodline. He had already been suppressed by the Milky Way's bloodline at the 9-star level. If he still lost to the 8-star level, it wouldn't make sense. After all, the number of clansmen of the Ancestors' bloodline far exceeded that of the Milky Way's bloodline. Why don't we challenge him in the arena and see if he will accept? Tan Xiaoxiao wanted to vent his anger. It will be difficult. Qi Hong said, back then, when I brushed past him in the Tranquil Heart Lake, I provoked him, but he didn't move. Tan Xiaoxiao mumbled, he is rather cunning. Qi Hong's expression turned serious, and the corners of his lips curled up coldly. This is the Tranquil Heart Plaza, and there are many clansmen here. Wait for me. I will challenge him again. It will be good if he accepts. If he doesn't, we can at least suppress his arrogance. Tan Xiaoxiao was delighted to hear this. Then I will have to trouble Brother Hong. Qi Hong replied, and his figure disappeared. Walking in the Tranquil Heart Plaza, Lin Feng looked around curiously. With his current soul spirit level, he didn't need to release it intentionally to sense everything around him. He had already noticed Qi Hong and Tan Xiaoxiao, as well as the other 2 8-star experts and 53 7-star experts in the Tranquil Heart Plaza. Oh, Lin Feng noticed Qi Hong's strange movements. Hua! Qi Hong appeared in front of him as though he had teleported. They had met once at the Tranquil Heart Lake, but it was their first time meeting each other. Qi Hong was tall and had a tyrannical aura. He was 3 meters tall and had a surging aura. It was obvious that he was the type that specialized in close combat. Lin Feng. Qi Hong's voice was loud and clear, as though he wanted to attract all the clansmen in the surroundings. I heard that you challenged the clansmen of my ancestors' bloodline and won every battle. Do you dare to have a duel with me? A big hat was placed on Jiangyi. Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. Since when had he challenged the people of his ancestors' bloodline and won every battle? But needless to say, Qi Hong's provocation was extremely effective. Numerous clansmen instantly gathered in the surroundings and whispered in discussion, and their gazes even carried a trace of anger and indignation. No one would feel comfortable when their bloodline was provoked. I'm not interested. Lin Feng didn't even give it a second thought before rejecting Qi Hong. He didn't have the time to waste here with Qi Hong. Moreover, winning against Qi Hong wouldn't bring him any benefits and would instead deepen the misunderstanding. There were some things that one did not need to pay attention to. Time would prove everything. At that time, when the news of him becoming a 9-star expert was announced by the Patriarch, all doubts would vanish. He was strong and had great talent and potential. So what if he was arrogant and didn't put the ancestors' bloodline in his eyes? Strength was the deciding factor. Although Chi Hong already knew the outcome, he was still unable to restrain his anger. Lin Feng's rejection didn't have the slightest bit of sincerity, and it was as if he didn't know him at all. In any case, Chi Hong, was the strongest person below the 9-star experts in the Milky Way's human clan. In the entire clan, apart from the 6 9-star experts, everyone had to be respectful when they saw him. Lin Feng, you are too cunning. Not far away, Tan Xiao sneered and said, why didn't you say you weren't interested when you challenged Gong Mo and me back then? I think you're just bullying the weak and fearing the strong. I'm not as strong as Brother Hong, so I backed off. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't explain and was about to leave. Tan Xiao was completely looked down upon, and he was furious. If you are so capable, let's fight again. Is this all the Milky Way's bloodline is capable of? Xiao. Chi Hong frowned and shouted. Lin Feng was also somewhat displeased and stopped in his tracks. I am me, and the Milky Way's bloodline is the Milky Way's bloodline. Don't get involved. If you want to fight again, I will accompany you to the end. Tan Xiao's face flushed red, and he was instantly at a loss for words. He naturally didn't want to compete with Lin Feng again. It was just that he had blurted out earlier. Xiao didn't mean that. Chi Hong continued the conversation and said, he said that on behalf of me. Lin Feng, we can have a friendly spar. I will let you have 3 moves. Let me have 3 moves? Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yes. When Chi Hong saw that Lin Feng seemed to be tempted, he hastily said, let's have a showdown on the arena. I believe that everyone is like me and wants to see the true strength of the newcomer that the clan leader thinks highly of. Now, Lin Feng nodded. Chi Hong nodded repeatedly. Sure, no problem. I will keep my word. I will let you have 3 moves and 1 attack. Lin Feng smiled. Since it is a spar, how can I let you have your way? It will be a fair fight. However, I am about to enter the Tranquil Heart Lake to comprehend. It won't be good if I get injured because of this. Chi Hong was stunned. He naturally had to win the fight, but he couldn't let Lin Feng get injured. How could he do that? Lin Feng, your request is too much. Tan Xiao frowned. No, what I mean is that if I get injured because of this, it will be a waste of my quota to enter the Tranquil Heart Lake. Lin Feng muttered to himself and said, how about this? I still have 40 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. If I lose in the spar, I will give it all to Brother Chi Hong unconditionally. Brother Chi Hong, what do you think? Chi Hong was stunned. Tan Xiao was stunned. The surrounding clansmen were also stunned. So good, a pie in the sky. This newbie Lin Feng couldn't be stupid, right? 40 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. The highest quota that an 8-star expert could get every 10 years was only 35 days. Poo-poo. Chi Hong's heartbeat was extremely fast, and his fist had already unconsciously clenched tightly. He naturally understood what Lin Feng meant, even though he originally only wanted to vent his anger for his ancestors' bloodline. Even though he wanted to vent his anger on behalf of his clan, this was undoubtedly a great opportunity for him. As long as he defeated Lin Feng, not only would his ancestors be able to hold their heads high, but he would also be able to get 40 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. That was a full 40 days. He only had 35 days of quota every 10 years, and he still had 60 days left from the rewards given to him by dozens of eras. If I have these 40 days, in addition to the 60 days that I originally had, I will have 130 days in the next 10 years. Chi Hong became more and more excited as he thought about it. If he could continuously comprehend the Tranquil Heart Lake for 120 days without stopping, it was very likely that he could break through the bottleneck and become a 9-star expert. A great opportunity. All right, I accept. Chi Hong's eyes shone brightly as he suppressed his excitement. If I lose in the spar, I will give you all of my quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. His ranking at the Tranquil Heart Lake was higher than Lin Feng's. If Lin Feng could get 40 days, he couldn't do the same. Even if he won, he would be criticized by others. Chi Hong felt that this bet was already very fair with an extra 20 days. Anyway, it was impossible for him to lose. It didn't matter even if he had an extra 200 days, let alone 20 days. Chi Hong had 100% confidence in Lin Feng, a newcomer who overestimates himself. He thinks that he is a genius and doesn't care about others. Chi Hong sneered in his heart. Soon, I will let you know how big the gap between us is. Brother Chi Hong is indeed a straightforward person. Lin Feng smiled. Since that is the case, let's go. All right. Chapter 1961. The entire Ningxin realm was in an uproar. The news of Chi Hong challenging Lin Feng spread very quickly. After all, it had happened in the Ningxin Plaza, and everyone had witnessed it with their own eyes. Moreover, the wager involved the Ningxin Lake quota and was naturally a big deal. Every day of a Ningxin Lake quota was very precious. It was especially so for those below the 7-star level. They wouldn't be able to get any quota. Even for 8-star experts, they would only get about 10 days of quota every 10 years. It was extremely rare. Right now, the wager was 40 days and 60 days. This newcomer Lin Feng is really gutsy. He even dares to wager on the Ningxin Lake quota. Isn't that so? He merely won against Gong Ma and Tan Xiao, and he thinks that he is invincible. Chi Hong is the most outstanding among the 8-star experts in our ancestral lineage. The Patriarch and Deputy Patriarch both agreed that he is the one most likely to break through to the 9-star level. He can defeat that newcomer Lin Feng without breaking through. Lord Chi's strength is already comparable to a 9-star expert. This time, he has to win ruthlessly. He really thinks that there is no one in our ancestral lineage. This newcomer Lin Feng is really daring to find trouble for our Milky Way lineage. That's right. I came here 2 epochs earlier than him, and am still not a match for Chi Hong. How can he possibly win when he just arrived? It doesn't matter if he loses, but he also lost the Ningxin Lake quota. Isn't this giving it away to his competitor? It will be even harder for our Milky Way lineage to surpass the ancestral lineage. Forget it. Newcomers are like this. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. After all, he cultivated to the 8-star level in the outside world. It is normal for him to be arrogant. Losing and falling might not be a bad thing for him. There is no harm in making the ancestral lineage happy. After all, we will catch up sooner or later. There were endless discussions. Many figures emerged from various locations in the Ningxin realm and headed towards the Ningxin arena. A battle of this level, regardless of whether it was a topic of discussion or a spectator's view, was naturally not to be missed. One had to know that, generally, the top 10 of the Calming Heart Pond basically did not fight. Everyone was well aware of this, and rarely would their rankings change. Chi Hong hadn't challenged anyone for close to 100 years. Everyone knew that he was the strongest 8-star expert in the Milky Way's human race. But now, someone finally dared to challenge him. Let's see what level Chi Hong's strength has reached. I wonder how much of Chi Hong's strength this newcomer can force out. Boring. The outcome of such a challenge has long been determined. Chi Hong is really shameless. Isn't he bullying a newcomer by issuing such a challenge? That's right. You still want to deceive yourself. Do you think that it's fair if you take out more of the quota for Calming Heart Lake? Fair my ass. We're going to win anyway. So what's the point of taking out more? Number 5, Calming Heart Pool. 5th younger sister. Do you want to go, or should I go? Sitting on the wall, Sue-in, who had a sloppy look on his face, smirked evilly. Lu-ying rolled her eyes at him. Call me 5th sister. If you want to go, go. You don't have to ask me. Sue-in smiled valiantly, the demonic patterns on his dark skin flashing. So easy? Are you disappointed or confident? Lu Ying's hands glowed as she repaired her armor. She didn't even raise her head as she said, You should know Lin Feng's strength better than I do. Lu Ying really didn't know much about Lin Feng. However, from what she had seen, Lin Feng didn't seem like an impulsive person. Therefore, she couldn't make a conclusion. Suen played with his dagger casually. 8-star top-notch strength. He has a very strong trump card. Once he unleashes his strength, he will be close to a 9-star. He should be ranked 10th to 12th in the Calming Heart Lake. Almost all the 8-star experts in the Milky Way's human race had a combat strength close to or even comparable to a 9-star expert. Lin Feng was brought here by Shi Dingshan and Suan. The two of them had seen Lin Feng's battle with Wu Arai. Therefore, they naturally knew more about Lin Feng's strength than Lu Ying. He's very smart. Since he dares to accept the challenge, he must be confident. Suan smirked evilly. In my opinion, when he entered Calming Heart Lake 2 years ago, he most likely improved one of his nomological Dao to perfection. From a top-notch 8-star to a peak 8-star, plus his trump card, in his opinion, he should have the strength to fight with Qi Hong. Lu Ying's pretty jade-like hand paused slightly as she nodded. Suan's deduction was highly likely. Qi Hong has 2 nomological Dao to perfection, and his attainment in space is very high. Lu Ying looked up at Suan. As far as I know, he has an outstanding true treasure, right? Suan nodded. The Patriarch gave it to him. Lin Feng also got a Brahma. It's different, Lu Ying said. Qi Hong has had that outstanding true treasure for several years. He is already proficient in it and can unleash most of its power. Yes. Suan smiled faintly, and his eyes were evil. He is Fourth Brother's disciple. I saw Fourth Brother teaching him 10 years ago. Under normal circumstances, he is already ranked 7th in the Calming Heart Lake, infinitely close to a 9-star expert. Once he unleashes the outstanding true treasure, his strength is comparable to a 4th-grade 9-star expert. Lu Ying frowned slightly. She knew that Suan would not lie to her. Lu Ying stopped what she was doing and hesitated slightly. She then looked up. I'll be the arbitrator. No, I want to go too. Suan crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled. You. Lu Ying gritted her teeth. There's no need to argue. Suddenly, a heavenly voice was heard. Lu Ying and Suan were both surprised. An elegant and beautiful figure walked in from outside. She was dressed in a white robe that covered her graceful figure. It was Mystery, the battle between Qi Hong and Lin Feng. Enigma said softly, I'll be the arbitrator. There was a sea of people. Although the Calming Heart battle arena was huge, there were also many clansmen watching the battle. Everyone was fighting to get to the front. No one wanted to miss this exciting battle. Wave after wave of discussions and curious gazes were all focused on the 2 figures on the battle arena. Number 7 Calming Heart Lake, the strongest 8-star expert, Qi Hong, was the only 8-star expert who remained undefeated. It was rumored that he had 9-star strength. Number 20 Calming Heart Lake, the newcomer, Lin Feng, caused a commotion the moment he entered the Calming Heart Lake. He was the only 8-star expert who joined the clan and was greatly nurtured by the Patriarch. His potential was amazing. Everyone was looking forward to the battle between the two of them. It hasn't started yet. The arbitrator hasn't arrived yet. I can't wait. Let's start. I wonder who it is. Black Wheel King or Firefly King. It doesn't matter. No matter who it is, they won't be biased. This battle is the focus of everyone's attention. No matter if it's the Milky Way bloodline or the Ancestor bloodline, they don't want to lose. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 sonic booms suddenly resounded, causing the noisy environment to instantly quiet down. The clansmen widened their eyes in shock. There were 3 9-star experts, 1 at the front and 2 at the back. The one at the front was the Deputy Patriarch, Mystery. Chapter 1962. Deputy Chief. It's actually the Deputy Chief. I haven't seen the Deputy Chief for a long time. She's still so beautiful, just like a fairy. The surrounding clansmen all widened their eyes in excitement. Although there were 2 deputy chiefs in the clan, they were only in name. One was Shi Dingshan, and the other was Mystery. They represented the greatest power in the clan. After all, the chief, Dong Huang, was basically in seclusion and rarely took care of the clan's affairs. More than 99% of the clansmen were from the ancestors' bloodline. Although they respected Shi Dingshan, they couldn't help but be biased towards Mystery. After all, Mystery was the real ancestors' bloodline. Moreover, she was the first person from the ancestors' bloodline to reach the 9-star level. Mystery Ruler. Lin Feng also looked over. He had already seen all 6 9-star experts in the clan. The elegant and picturesque woman in front of him was like an unfathomable lake. Her eyes were filled with wisdom. 33rd on the Origin Awakening list. Lin Feng knew that Mystery Ruler was ranked above Wu Ergu and Lord Kanjia. She was the third strongest expert in the clan, second only to the chief, Dong Huang, and the deputy chief, Shi Dingshan. She was also a rare female expert on the Origin Awakening list. I'll be the referee for this competition on behalf of my sixth brother, Suin. Do you have any objections? Mystery's voice was like a spring breeze. Time seemed to freeze in an instant. This was because every time there was an 8-star battle, a message would be sent to Lu Ying, and Su and whoever received the message would be the arbiter. This time, Suin received the message first, so he should be the referee. Actually, with Mystery's identity and status, there was no problem. However, it was reasonable for her to be the referee. As the deputy chief, she had to set an example. No objections. Sorry to trouble you, Mystery Ruler, Lin Feng and Qi Hong said. Don't embarrass us, kid, Suin shouted at Qi Hong. Then, his gaze fell on Lin Feng, and the corner of his mouth rose slightly. Lin Feng smiled back and nodded slightly. Although Su and from the Supreme Dragon Sky City was also present, Brother Shi was the one who recommended him and brought him back to the clan. However, Lin Feng didn't dislike Suin. He was clear about Su An's position. As a member of his ancestors' bloodline, he naturally didn't want his own people to suffer. Unfortunately, he doesn't know that I've already taken that step and become a 9-star expert. Lin Feng thought to himself. He knew that Qi Hong surely had a trump card. The Milky Way's human clan was one of the 5 great clans. And since Qi Hong was able to occupy the #1 position amongst all the 8-star experts, his strength was surely obvious to all, and it was very likely that he was already comparable to a 9-star expert. But it was only comparable. As for himself, he was a genuine 9-star expert. The gap between them was too big. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head and met Firefly King's beautiful eyes. She didn't say anything. She just looked at him quietly. Lin Feng grinned and nodded slightly. From Firefly King's eyes, it could be seen that she did not have much confidence in herself. But she still came. Very soon, after this battle, the entire clan will know that I, Lin Feng, have become a 9-star expert. Lin Feng didn't want to hide, and he couldn't hide at all. Normally, he could conceal his aura, but once the battle started, the difference would be obvious. However, there was no harm in exposing himself. Originally, he had planned to go to the Dongwang Palace to meet the clan leader first, and he would still be honest about his status as a 9-star expert. Now, it was just a little earlier. The surrounding cheers were like thunder, and all the clansmen were in high spirits. A total of 3 9-star experts had arrived, and it was enough to show how important this battle was. Even the Enigma King, who is usually elusive, had appeared and volunteered to be the judge. They knew that it wasn't because of Qi Hong. It was because of the newcomer, Lin Feng. Even if Lin Feng lost today, it wouldn't prevent him from becoming a dazzling new star of the Milky Way's human clan. The clan would definitely nurture him, and in time, it wouldn't be difficult for him to surpass Qi Hong. At least today, I will defeat you. Qi Hong clenched his fists. He wasn't stupid. Even though he was the #1 8-star expert, he had never been so valued by the clan. The difference between them was enough to make him feel a little jealous. However, it was precisely because of this that he wanted to win even more. I will tell everyone that I, Qi Hong, am the most outstanding one among the Milky Way's human clan. Qi Hong was full of fighting spirit, and patterns appeared on his black battle armor. A giant axe appeared in his hand, and there were extremely complicated secret patterns engraved on the surface of the axe. Lightning twined around it. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. The giant axe in Qi Hong's hand was no weaker than Lin Feng's Eclipse Mystic Saber. It was also a top-notch elite true treasure. Moreover, it was a perfect fit. It was enough to unleash the power of an ordinary, excellent, true treasure. After countless eras of training, Qi Hong could control it as he wished. With his sky-raising axe alone, he could already stand at the top of the 8-star experts. Not to mention, he still had a trump card, an extremely powerful trump card. Even a 9-star expert would fall for it if he wasn't careful. Are you all ready? Then, Enigma dragged out a short and long word. Begin. As soon as he finished speaking, it was as if a sunny day had suddenly turned into a violent storm. Lin Feng was still standing there. Qi Hong, who was already prepared, took the initiative to attack. The sky-raising axe revealed its loftiness, and lightning swept across the entire area. Kill! Kill! Whistling and roaring sounds could be heard. Everyone was extremely excited. At this moment, Qi Hong's aura had completely suppressed Lin Feng. Lin Feng was like a tiny speck of dust in a thunderstorm, unable to withstand any destruction. Not only Su and Lu Ying, but even Enigma, who was an arbiter, was slightly puzzled. He didn't understand what Lin Feng was planning. After all, the one who made the first move would gain the upper hand, especially in a battle arena. The one who attacked first would always have some advantage. Did he have a card up his sleeve? Or perhaps he was frightened? Suddenly, Lin Feng moved. His hands passed through a 5-colored brilliance. In an instant, with the 5-colored light as the center, boundless light radiated outwards. The terrifying control of the black vortex had once again increased. After his bloodline had been strengthened, it wasn't only the divine inscriptions of light and divine inscriptions of darkness that had been strengthened. It also included the black vortex. Brahma domain. Lin Feng's control was even more stable than when he was an 8-star expert. The 5-colored brilliance instantly enveloped the entire battle arena, directly suppressing Qi Hong's domain. It was very calm, but it was also extremely powerful. What? Qi Hong's expression changed, and he suddenly felt uncomfortable. He was trapped in the Brahma domain. A huge palm suddenly appeared in the void, ignoring the sky, raising axes lightning, and directly descending. Get out of my way! As Qi Hong roared, the sky-raising axe became even more ferocious. Endless lightning turned into bolts of lightning, crazily tearing at the huge palm, riddling it with holes. Boom! Before the huge palm could land completely, it was destroyed. Back then, when the 3 Blood Might brothers were attacked by this move, even the Blood Might could only barely block it. The Jade Fox and Peach Arrow were also seriously injured. However, Lin Feng was stronger now. The huge palm condensed the full power of the Brahma domain, but it still couldn't hurt Qi Hong. The difference in their strength was obvious. Qi Hong was indeed worthy of being the strongest human below 9 stars in the Milky Way. Chapter 1963. However, he just had to run into Lin Feng. If it was Lin Feng before his breakthrough, Qi Hong might have a chance of winning. However, now that Lin Feng's strength had reached 9-star, even Suan might not be able to defeat him, let alone Qi Hong. Qi! The Eclipse Mystic Saber and the Peric Devil Saber appeared at the same time. One activated the divine pattern of light, while the other activated the dark pattern of darkness. The third stage bloodline merged perfectly at this moment. Even the black whirlpool entered an extremely stable state. There was no need to purposely merge them. His bloodline was self-contained. The Peric Devil Saber had only absorbed a tiny bit of blood and was already glowing. Lin Feng, whose Tao of Dark Demon had reached perfection, could already unleash most of the Peric Devil Saber's power. Its full power was comparable to an outstanding cardinal treasure. Of course, the price was also shocking. After all, the Peric Devil Saber needed to absorb blood. Lin Feng didn't need to expend so much effort to deal with Qi Hong. Moreover, Lin Feng hadn't cultivated the myriad Heaven Dao's light and darkness fusion technique. He was far from being able to control the light and darkness energy at full power. After his strength had reached 9-star, just any type of energy would have a huge increase in power. Moreover, his Tao of Light Speed and Tao of Dark Demon had both reached perfection. The extent of the increase was hard to estimate. The Eclipse Mystic Saber had only unleashed the tip of the iceberg. The power of the first layer of secret patterns could barely be controlled and fused. However, it had already surpassed any battle in the past. The 9-star and 8-star levels were 2 completely different levels. Tao of Dark Demon has reached perfection? As expected, he must have comprehended it at the Calming Heart Lake 2 years ago. Suin, who was proficient in the Tao of Darkness, immediately saw through Lin Feng's strength. This saber is not bad either. TSK, Tao of Light Speed has reached perfection. On the other side, Lu Ying, who was proficient in the Tao of Light, had her beautiful eyes flickering. His divine pattern of light is so complicated. Compared to mine, it is actually better. Light and darkness bloodlines? Mystery was the most shocked. She pursed her red lips and revealed a look of disbelief. These two bloodlines can actually coexist. Moreover, it can even fuse the light and darkness energy. Unbelievable. Mystery opened her red lips slightly, and her beautiful eyes sparkled with astonishment. She had come here for Lin Feng. What she saw before her eyes was indeed special and brought her many pleasant surprises. She could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable. She knew almost all of the bloodlines of the 9-star elites on the Origin Awakening list. They were all very powerful, and some of them were even heaven-defying. However, she had never seen a bloodline as special as Lin Feng's. Wait a minute. Enigma was stunned for a moment, but all his attention was on Lin Feng's bloodline, and he neglected the other part. Energy. How can his origin energy be so strong? And his aura? Even Mystery, who had always been well-mannered and could remain calm even in the face of earth-shattering events, was deeply moved and revealed a look of shock. What did she see? What is this? This kind of energy fluctuation and this kind of attack power was definitely not something that an 8-star expert could possess. What was most clear was his aura, the aura of a life form. He was completely on the same level as them. Lin Feng has actually broken through to the 9-star level. Mystery was surprised and delighted, and her beautiful eyes lit up. At this moment, the two rays of light, one white and one black, had already interacted with each other and condensed into one. The two solitary and different battle blades seemed to have transformed into one battle blade. Under the range of the Brahma domain, Lin Feng attacked while facing Qi Hong, who was filled with battle intent. Thousand obscuring heavenly saber. First move. Turning into dust. Boom! It was an absolutely powerful attack that shrouded the entire area. With a rumbling sound, the saber directly broke through the lightning and thunder. The incomparably powerful Raising Sky axe and the light and darkness origins had completely devoured the lightning and thunder, leaving not a single drop behind. This is impossible. Qi Hong widened his eyes in shock, and his mind was in a daze. In his opinion, this was a battle without any suspense. With his strength, he could easily defeat the newcomer in front of him. However, when the axe that he was most proud of cleaved down, it was like a lone boat rushing into the sea and was directly engulfed. He had no power to resist. The difference was too great. Qi Hong felt as if he was in a boundless sea, and his protective armor was crumbling. The terrifying power engulfed him and destroyed everything. With a boom, a sharp pain attacked his heart, and his chest felt as if it had been struck by lightning. Bang! Qi Hong fell heavily on the ground, and the sound was as heavy as thunder. The surrounding clansmen, who were originally cheering excitedly, were all dumbfounded. When they saw this scene, time seemed to stop for a moment. In front of this ordinary-looking newcomer, the strongest 8-star expert of their ancestors' bloodline, Qi Hong. With just one move, he was defeated miserably. What happened? What happened in such a short time? How did Qi Hong lose? Everyone looked at each other. Their vision was too narrow. Besides the 8-star experts present, only a few 7-star experts were able to see it clearly. Of course, Enigma, Lu Ying, and Suin naturally saw it clearly. However, because they saw it clearly, they were even more shocked. It's impossible, right? Suin's expression was a little funny, and the corners of his mouth twitched. It was Lin Feng's attack power just now that was almost at the level of his strength. Lu Ying, on the other hand, smiled. Her beautiful eyes were sparkling as she looked at Lin Feng curiously. She really wanted to know when this super newcomer of the Milky Way bloodline had broken through to the 9-star level. Lin Feng wins. Mystery remained calm, but waves of emotions were surging in her heart. The Milky Way's human race had another 9-star expert. To Mystery, she didn't care whether the new 9-star expert was from their ancestors' bloodline or the Milky Way bloodline. As long as the Milky Way's human race became stronger, she would be happy. No, I don't accept this. Chi Hong struggled to get up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He was like an injured beast, and his eyes were full of ferocity. He wasn't willing to lose just like that. I haven't lost yet. A light flashed in Chi Hong's hand, and he took out a spike ball that was filled with tyrannical thunder energy. It was his strongest trump card, a thunder element outstanding treasure. With this treasure, he could unleash his strongest combat power. However, he didn't have time to unleash it and was defeated in one move. Chi Hong was naturally unwilling to accept this. Mystery looked over and said indifferently, "The outcome has been decided. There's no need to argue." Deputy Patriarch. Chi Hong was so anxious that his face turned red and his veins popped out. He didn't want to lose. If he lost, he would lose all his face. He still had 60 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. Lin Feng held back just now. Mystery looked at the most outstanding 8-star expert of the ancestors' bloodline, hinting that there was no need to continue fighting. She knew clearly that their strength wasn't on the same level. I didn't use my full strength either, Chi Hong said with a red face. All right, kid, don't embarrass yourself. There's nothing embarrassing about losing to him. Su En's figure flashed and landed directly on the battle ring. He looked at Lin Feng with a gloomy gaze, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. He is a 9-star expert. Chapter 1964. He was a 9-star strongman. It was just a short sentence, but it was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Everyone was shocked. Chi Hong, who bore the brunt of Lin Feng's attack, opened his eyes wider than copper bells as he looked at Lin Feng in astonishment, as if he was looking at a monster. Tan Xiao Xiao, who wasn't far behind him, was shocked to the point his jaw almost fell off. Did he hear it wrong? Lin Feng, who was still fighting with him 2 years ago, was now a 9-star strongman. What a joke. Was it so easy to break through the 9-star level? Chi Hong was completely speechless, as if he was a mute. Blackwell King is right. Enigma's beautiful eyes scanned the surroundings and said to the stunned people, Lin Feng has indeed become a 9-star strongman. This is great news for the Milky Way's human tribe. From today onwards, the Milky Way's human tribe has one more 9-star strongman. From today onwards, the Milky Way's human tribe will have 7 9-star strongmen like the Z-Way Star Tower. Her soft voice seeped into their hearts and lungs and had boundless magic. Enigma's voice was filled with pride. At this moment, everyone's eyes were shining as if they were in a dream. They didn't expect that happiness would come so suddenly. In this short moment, the Milky Way's human tribe had one more 9-star strongman. That was a 9-star strongman who stood at the top of the Origin Awakening continent. It represented the standard of a tribe or force's strength. Clap, 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 clap. Thunderous applause was dedicated to Lin Feng. At this moment, there was no distinction between the ancestors and the Milky Way's human tribe. All the people were filled with pride and were extremely excited to be a member of the Milky Way's human tribe. Lin Feng, Lin Feng, Lin Feng. Cheers rose from all directions and shot into the sky. Their excited faces were filled with excitement and joy, as if they had completely forgotten what had just happened. Even Chi Hong had come back to his senses at this moment. He smiled bitterly and looked up at Lin Feng. Previously, he did have the heart to fight, but now it was gone. Other than admiration and lamentation, there was nothing else. Although his strength was comparable to a 9-star expert, it was only comparable. There was still a huge gap between him and a true 9-star expert. Just as Suen had said, there was nothing shameful about losing to a 9-star expert. However, losing the 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake all of a sudden was still very painful. But there was nothing he could do about it. Disasters from the heavens could be avoided, but disasters from one's own doing could not be avoided. I'm really stupid. Chi Hong spat softly as he shook his head. If he hadn't tried to show off by challenging Lin Feng, this wouldn't have happened. Right now, he had gone for wool and come home shorn. Learn from your mistakes. Chi Hong looked at Lin Feng, who was conversing with the Firefly King and the Blackwell King. He felt bitter in his heart. However, he still had to find an opportunity to apologize later. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if Lin Feng bore a grudge against him. Brat, you're really something. Sneaking around, when did you break through? Su secretly smiled and raised his eyebrows. I just broke through and was preparing to meet the patriarch. Lin Feng replied with a smile and looked at Chi Hong, who was not far away. When Chi Hong saw Lin Feng looking over, he smiled apologetically and said, "But I was stopped by Chi Hong. This brat suffered a huge loss. TSK, the 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake." Suan looked at Lin Feng and winked, hinting at something. Lu Ying snorted and said, "Why? You guys wanted to bet, and now you want to return it after losing? How can there be such a good thing? Ignore her. Seventh brother, fifth sister is here." Lin Feng had just become a 9-star expert and was ranked 7th in the tribe. Suan spread out his hands and shrugged. "I didn't say anything." Mi Qing said. Sixth brother meant to give face to Chi Hong. After all, Chi Hong is the disciple of fourth brother, Sanya. The 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake isn't a lot. The key is Sanya's face. Lin Feng understood. His disciple had been schemed against and taken away the 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. Sanya would definitely lose face. After all, Lin Feng was a 9-star expert and Chi Hong was only an 8-star expert. What Mi Qing and Suan meant was to give face to Sanya and do him a favor. From their point of view, this was understandable. After all, there were only a few 9-star experts in a tribe. If they could be more peaceful and united, the tribe would be stronger. Moreover, the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake wasn't very useful to a 9-star expert. However, from Lin Feng's point of view, it was different. The one who provoked first was cheap. If he wasn't a 9-star expert and was only an 8-star newcomer, Chi Hong would have challenged him. If he didn't accept the challenge, it would be equivalent to throwing the reputation of the Milky Way. If he accepted the challenge, he would basically lose. How could he bully him? It was just that Chi Hong wanted to win too much and wanted to suppress him. Moreover, he needed the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake to comprehend the Great Perfection Realm. The more, the better. There were even 100,000 origin realms above the Great Perfection Realm. The comprehension of realms was endless. How could he complain about having more? A 9-star expert didn't need to comprehend the origin of laws. That was because they were too short-sighted. 100,000 origin realms were very strong, but comprehension was very slow and difficult. The most troublesome thing was that even if you comprehended 0.1%, your strength was no different from the Great Perfection Realm. Therefore, the Great Perfection Realm was already the limit in Origin Awakened Continent. As for himself, before 100,000 Origin Realms, there were still 10 Great Tao of Laws to comprehend to the Great Perfection Realm. Only then could he cultivate the first volume of Ancestor Wanqian's painstaking effort, the Wanqian Tao. The requirements were extremely high, but obviously once he cultivated it, his strength would increase tremendously. Third sister, sixth brother, don't worry. I have a way to deal with it, Lin Feng said to Mi Qing and Suan with an apologetic smile. He knew that they had good intentions and weren't biased towards Chi Hong. Mi Qing and Suan looked at each other. Seeing that they couldn't persuade Lin Feng, there was nothing they could do. Now that Lin Feng was a 9-star expert, his status in the tribe was actually the same as theirs. There was no difference in status. They naturally couldn't order Lin Feng to hand over the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. Moreover, if they did that, it would only disappoint a genius expert. Was it worth it for a mere 60 days quota for Tranquil Heart Lake? Lin Feng's talent wasn't inferior to the tribe leaders. It'll be fine after you explain. Suan said, fourth brother's temper is just a bit fiery, but he's not a bad person. If I meet him, I'll help you. In the end, it's Chi Hong's fault. Mi Qing looked at Lin Feng and said, remember not to be angry. Seventh brother, if you really lack the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake, I'll give it to you. No need, third sister. Lin Feng refused with a smile. After chatting with the three for a while, Lin Feng left under the admiring gazes of the clansmen. It had already been an hour since his battle with Qi Hong, and Lin Feng believed that the news of him becoming a 9-star martial artist had already spread out. The Patriarch and Brother sure should know about it. Let's see if I can get more quota for Tranquil Heart Lake from the tribe leader. Chapter 1965. In Dongwang Palace, swords of different styles were suspended in the air. The entire Dongwang Prefecture was like a huge castle. There was a layer of invisible sword qi around it, shining with cold light. Entering it again, it felt different. Lin Feng's strength had changed. Clang, clang, clang. The swords made a buzzing sound from time to time, which went straight into his mind. Lin Feng was not affected at all. He stepped into this place that was like a holy land of swords. In front of him, a black figure in martial attire was holding a sword with one hand. The sound of the swords around him was heavier, as if they were triggering the great bell array. It was Dong Huang, the Patriarch. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of the swords was louder than the one before. Endless sword will shot out from the swords in the sky. In an instant, they flew rapidly, like flying swords that were controlled by someone, piercing through the air sharply. Lin Feng instantly understood the Patriarch's intention. Qi, qi. 2 swords were unsheathed. They were the Eclipse Mystic Saber and the Peric Demon Saber. Patriarch, please enlighten me. Lin Feng's combat strength erupted. The Brahma domain was displayed, and the black wings of warmth were fully unfolded. The entire space seemed to be lifted, causing the surrounding flying swords to tremble slightly. Oh! Dong Huang's voice was slightly surprised, and he rarely smiled. Sword light flashed between his eyebrows, and in an instant, the slightly fluctuating space stabilized. There were no more waves. Amazing! Lin Feng was secretly shocked, but he was not surprised. The person he was facing now was a transcendent existence ranked 6th on the Source Awakening list. He had been a 9-star cultivator for countless eras, and his strength was unfathomable. It could even be said that he had single-handedly created and strengthened the human clan of the Milky Way. Dong Huang, the Patriarch, was a legendary figure. Attack me with all your strength. Dong Huang's voice rang out, shaking the main hall. The sword will of the flying swords suddenly increased, bringing more pressure to Lin Feng. Okay. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and his aura also soared. Ever since he had become a 9-star expert, he had yet to truly fight a battle. His battle with Qi Hong was merely a warm-up. Now that he was facing off against the Patriarch, he could finally unleash his full power without any pressure. Let's see how strong I am now. Lin Feng didn't hold back, and his attack suddenly burst out. After a while, Dongwang Palace returned to peace. One by one, the swords returned to their original state. Dongwang, the Patriarch, was still standing there, but there was no longer any aggressive sword will. At this moment, it was as if ice and snow had melted, giving people a warm feeling. Good, very good. Dongwang's eyes flashed with sword light. Looking at Lin Feng, he did not hide his appreciation for talent. Top talent, top bloodline, and top temperament. The human race of the Milky Way has a successor. Dongwang laughed heartily and said peerless 3 times in a row. He was very satisfied. With his strength and experience, he would naturally know just how strong Lin Feng was and what his talent was like after exchanging blows with him. In Dongwang's opinion, as long as such a genius grew up, he would at least reach the top 10 of the Origin Awakening list. Among all the 9-star strong men, he would be in the first tier. However, what Dongwang didn't know was that, in fact, what he had seen was only the tip of the iceberg of Lin Feng. Even so, it was already shocking enough. The Patriarch is indeed powerful. Lin Feng admired Dongwang very much. No matter how much he bombarded Dongwang, even if he used his most powerful skill, Dongwang could easily block it without any effort. At present, his strength was still far from that of the Patriarch. The gap between him and Qi Hong was even greater. Don't be restrained. 7th brother, since you have stepped into the 9-star level, we are peers. Just like 2nd brother and 3rd brother, you can call me Big Brother. I have just walked a little more than you on this path, Dongwang said. Big brother, Lin Feng said respectfully. As far as he knew, only Brother Sure and Sister Mystery dared to call Dongwang Big Brother, while fifth sister and sixth brother usually called him Patriarch. I didn't expect that a peerless genius like you would appear in my Milky Way bloodline. It is really a joy for my Milky Way human clan. Dongwang was very satisfied. Although you have just broken through not long ago, your strength is close to the upper end of the fourth tier. I believe that it won't be long before you can be on par with fifth sister and sixth brother. I am very pleased. The fourth tier was after the 50th rank on the Origin Awakening list, which was also the last tier. Generally, martial artists who had just broken through to the 9-star level were basically at the bottom, which meant that they were ranked below the 70th rank. It was extremely rare to see someone like Lin Feng, whose strength was in the upper end of the fourth tier. It should be known that there were very few 9-star strongmen, and each of them have been famous for a long time. Their strength was naturally not comparable to those who had just broken through to the 9-star level. It seems that the strength I just displayed should be around the 60th rank on the Origin Awakening list in the Patriarch's opinion. Lin Feng didn't use his full strength. What a joke. If he used his full strength, how much blood would the demon Perishing Blade suck? How much spatial energy would the Black Vortex consume? Especially now that he was at the 9-star level, every full strength attack would consume Lin Feng greatly. If I use my full strength, my strength should be about the same as sixth brother's. Even if I'm not, it shouldn't be too far off, Lin Feng thought to himself. Sixth brother Su and was ranked 54th on the Origin Awakening list. As for fifth sister Lu Ying, her ranking was slightly higher. She was ranked 50th and barely squeezed into the third tier. The third tier was very large. Ranked 31st to 50th were all in the third tier. Among them, third sister Enigma was ranked 33rd. Fourth brother Song Yu was ranked 39th. The Destiny Race's Wu Irai, who had attacked him in the Extreme Dragon Sky City, was also ranked 42nd. I just entered the 9-star level. My strength still has a lot of room for improvement. It shouldn't be a problem for me to reach the third tier in a short period of time and be similar to fifth sister's strength. Lin Feng was very confident. After all, his life force had increased, and his abilities in all aspects had increased greatly. He just needed time. This included his realm and using supreme treasures. He needed to cultivate. Take the Eclipse Mystic Saber, for example. Now, he could completely unlock the third layer of secret engravings and display his strength. If I can comprehend all 12 nomological great Daos to perfection and successfully cultivate the first volume of the Wanxin Dao, my strength will have a great breakthrough, Lin Feng thought. He was not strong enough now, especially when his opponent was the Destiny Race. Back then, when fifth sister entered the 9-star level, I rewarded her with 1 million contribution points, a 300-day quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, and an outstanding supreme treasure. Dongwang looked at Lin Feng with bright eyes. Your talent far surpasses fifth sister's. I'll give you 2 million contribution points, a 600-day quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, and the supreme treasure. Including the Brahma that I gave you in advance, it's 2 treasures. Dongwang smiled. If fifth sister knows, she'll probably say that I'm biased. Lin Feng also smiled. How could she not say that? Dongwang had given him twice as much as fifth sister. However, for him, the more the better, especially the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake and the outstanding supreme treasure, which he urgently needed. If you have any requirements for the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, tell me. I'll arrange it for you. Dongwang looked at Lin Feng. If you need it urgently, you can use it in advance. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In addition, your all-knowing saber realm is too shallow. You can't grasp the essence. Dongwang said, there are still 25 days before your next quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. You can stay here during this time. What did he mean? The Patriarch was going to teach him in person? Lin Feng was overjoyed. Thank you, brother. Chapter 1966. The ultimate saber proficiency realm was very difficult. It had completely exceeded the level of the Dark Domain Master. Although Lin Feng's talent with the saber was extraordinary. His current comprehension was less than 40%. He had not completely mastered the second move of the obscuring heavenly saber, Tears of Chaos. However, as his life level increased, his comprehension would undoubtedly increase by a lot. Life level was very important to the comprehension of realms. Just like a frog at the bottom of a well, it could only see the sky above the well. A frog in a lake could see the entire lake, and if it could jump out of the lake, it could see the entire world. 25 days. How much you can comprehend depends on yourself. Patriarch Dong Wang shook his head and pointed. In an instant, a purple sword rushed over. It was different from the flying swords of the sword array. This was a superior treasure sword. Clang! The sword vibrated and emitted a fierce aura. Although Patriarch Dong Wang was very far away, this purple sword seemed to be controlled by a pair of invisible hands. It quickly attacked Lin Feng. Pung! 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 Perfect to the extreme. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The sword technique that Patriarch Dong Wang used did not have any energy. It was just a simple sword move. He was quickly brought into that pure feeling. It was as if there was a pair of invisible hands guiding him to practice the saber. In the confrontation between the saber and the sword, he could vaguely feel the essence of the ultimate saber proficiency realm. It was like the countless stars in the starry sky, the reefs in the endless sea. Comprehension, inspiration, Lin Feng was quickly immersed in it. He could not help but practice the saber and comprehend the ultimate saber proficiency realm. His comprehension is indeed high. Patriarch Dong Wang's eyes flashed, and he smiled. To be able to see such an excellent descendant of the clan with his own eyes was a great joy for him and the clan. He is now in the ultimate saber proficiency realm. He has comprehended about 30%. In 25 days, he can comprehend 60% to 70%. Patriarch Dong Wang would not teach Lin Feng step by step, even if it was not difficult for him. It was easy to go from 30% to 60% or 70%, but from 60% to 90%, it would take 10 times more time. If he wanted to go from 90% to 100%, it would take hundreds of times more time. What's more, even if the master could show the way, it was still up to the individual to cultivate. He and Lin Feng couldn't even be considered as master and disciple. They were just giving some pointers when they saw an outstanding descendant of the clan. Soon, the turbulent void will open. Dong Wang's eyes were filled with fighting intent. He was already eager to give a try. He had made all the necessary preparations for this samsara's turbulent void. He was much stronger than he was in the previous samsara. Jiao Kong, Poison Rose, Dong Wang, will make you pay for what you did that day. Dong Wang's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. In the tranquil heart world, the news of Lin Feng becoming a 9-star powerhouse had already spread. At first, there were still some clansmen who didn't believe it. Only when the 2 vice-clan leaders appeared and officially announced this matter did the entire clan erupt into an uproar. Every clansman was unable to contain their joy and were filled with a strong sense of pride. Among the 8 major forces and the 5 major clans, the largest number of 9-star experts was only 7. The Milky Way's human tribe, as a newly risen tribe, had also reached the number of 7, shocking the origin enlightened continent. Very strong. You didn't see that battle. You were so unlucky. Yes, Lord Lin Feng is very powerful. Lord Qi Hong is already at the peak of 8-star strength, comparable to a 9-star expert. However, in front of Lord Lin Feng, he didn't even have the power to fight back. I heard that Lord Lin Feng's strength is comparable to that of the Black Wheel King. Everyone spoke one after another, and the atmosphere of the entire clan was heated. Every clansman was extremely proud and honored. After all, they were all part of the clan. Even Qi Hong, who was defeated by Lin Feng, didn't have any resentment in his heart. As Suen said, what was there to be embarrassed about being defeated by a 9-star expert? As for the quota of Tranquil Heart Lake, it was entirely his own greed that caused him to lose to Lin Feng. As the saying goes, a man whose heart is not content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. At this time, Lin Feng was concentrating on cultivating in the Dongwang Palace. In less than 3 days, his ultimate saber proficiency had passed 40% and was close to 50%. The speed of improvement was extremely fast. Every time he clashed with the purple treasured sword, Lin Feng gained many insights. On the one hand, his comprehension was indeed amazing. On the other hand, after breaking through to the 9-star level, Lin Feng's original shackles were no longer hindered. In addition, with the deliberate guidance of the clan leader, Dong Huang, he naturally mastered it. During this period of time, rather than saying that it was the teachings of Dong Huang, it was better to say that Lin Feng had melted the iceberg into drops of water and absorbed some of the saber techniques that he had not been able to comprehend before through the interpretation of the patriarch. The speed of improvement during this period of time was often the fastest. After that, the speed of comprehension would gradually decrease until it was less and less. If he only relied on the guidance of Dong Huang, the efficiency of comprehension would be much slower. This was one of the reasons why Dong Huang only taught Lin Feng for 25 days. It was because he knew that 25 days was enough. 60 to 70%. Dong Huang had a clear estimation of the progress of Lin Feng's comprehension of saber's finality. After all, he started from 0 and improved to 100% of saber's finality. Therefore, Dong Huang was very clear about the process. However, on the 7th day, he was shocked. This was because Lin Feng's comprehension speed was completely beyond his expectations. The speed of comprehension should gradually slow down, but 7th brother didn't slow down? Dong Huang was slightly surprised, and there was satisfaction in his eyes. Such a high comprehension speed. Perhaps it's because he can become a 9-star expert in a very short time. Everyone had something they were good at. This was especially true for a super genius who had appeared out of nowhere. Therefore, although Dong Huang was a little surprised, it was still within the acceptable range. However, as the days passed, Dong Huang was more and more shocked. This was because Lin Feng's comprehension speed was gradually accelerating instead of slowing down. This was incredible. 3 days ago, 7th brother had already comprehended more than 70%. Now he's close to 80%. Dong Huang was a little stunned and couldn't help laughing. It was known that the higher the level, the harder it was to improve. The realms in front of him were like a beach, and he could easily grab a handful of them. However, the later levels were like the sand on the beach that had been marked. At this time, one needed to pick them out bit by bit, and the efficiency was naturally reduced. When one comprehended 90%, one had to pick them up one by one. A natural saberman, Dong Huang sighed. Having a high comprehension speed only proved that one's cultivation speed was fast. However, having such a high saber compatibility meant that he was a natural saberman. Not only was his comprehension speed of saber techniques extremely fast, but his saber moves were also more powerful. His combat strength was often quite terrifying. However, Dong Huang didn't know that although Lin Feng's saber realm and comprehension were high, he was not so heaven-defying. There was another reason. Chapter 1967. Thousand Obscuring Heavenly Blade. This set of blade techniques, taught by Ancestor Wanqian, was extremely mysterious and extraordinary. One had to know that with Ancestor Wanqian's realm and status, if the blade techniques he created were ordinary, they wouldn't be engraved in the bloodline. This was a set of top-notch blade techniques that combined both combat and guidance. Blade techniques were generally divided into 2 categories. One was to guide the blade technique and practice it continuously to comprehend the realm of the blade technique. This type of blade technique was usually weaker. The other was to fight the blade technique. The power of this type of blade technique varied, but it was extremely difficult to comprehend the realm of the blade technique. However, it was rare to see the 2 types perfectly fused together. So, this is the true power of the Thousand Obscuring Heavenly Blade. Lin Feng was completely immersed in the comprehension of the blade technique. On one hand, he had the guidance and training of Patriarch Dong Huang, and on the other hand, he had the comprehension of the Thousand Obscuring Heavenly Blade. The 2 combined and blended with each other. It could be said that 1 + 1 was far greater than 2. Naturally, his realm improved quickly. Just a little more, just a little more. Lin Feng felt that his surroundings were filled with the intent of the blade technique. The purple sword in front of him became more and more blurry, and it was replaced by the two blades in his hands. Light and darkness intertwined, inexplicably blending together like a zither and a zither. So, this is the true essence of the fourth move, boundless weight. The boundless intent gathered and turned into droplets of water that poured into his mind. At this moment, Lin Feng understood everything in his heart. The two blades in his hands changed again as if they had a life of their own. The power of the realm transformed. The mystery of the fifth move, thousand obscuring heavenly blade, was suddenly comprehended. He had 9-star life rating. Now, Lin Feng's perception and realm were completely different from before. There were 5 levels of the thousand obscuring heavenly blade, and each level was a move. Only when one's realm reached a certain level could they comprehend the next move. Lin Feng had comprehended the second move before, and now he had comprehended the last move, which was also the strongest move, thousand obscuring heavenly blade with 100% comprehension. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. A full 25 days passed in the blink of an eye. Phew! Dongwang also let out a sigh of relief. The purple sword hummed and flew back to the main hall. Looking at the young human in front of him, Dongwang sighed in his heart. It was too terrifying. A short 25 days had far exceeded his expectations. In the saber realm, every 10% is a bottleneck. It's extremely difficult to cross it, especially the last 3 points, 70%, 80%, and 90%. Dongwang's heart was in turmoil, and he could not calm down. His previous estimation of Lin Feng was already very high, over 60%, but not 70%. The further he went, the more time he would need to spend. However, Lin Feng had not only crossed the 70% threshold, he had even crossed the 80% threshold. That was dozens of times harder than crossing the 70% threshold. All those years ago, he'd studied it by himself, and he'd spent an entire few eras before he'd succeeded. Dongwang didn't even think about it. It was impossible for such a warrior to exist. The talent and aptitude that Lin Feng displayed was already enough to shock him. It's breathtaking. Dongwang couldn't help but smile. If that old man Jiao Kong knew that we had such a peerless genius, he would be furious. The competition between Dongwang and Dragon Emperor Jiao Kong was very fierce. Neither side wanted to fall behind in the personal battle or the competition between the clans. As one of the 5 major clans, they all wanted to suppress the other. It's over. Lin Feng held the saber in his hand. Although his comprehension was still clear, it was much less. Without the guidance of Dongwang, it was not easy to comprehend the obscuring heavenly saber by itself. Especially now that he had comprehended the last level, it was even more difficult. It'll take at least a few years to go from 80% to 100%, even with the guidance of the clan leader. Lin Feng smiled. He knew that the higher the level of the mastery of saber, the harder it was to improve. Dongwang, the clan leader, was very busy. It was a great favor to teach him without reservation for 25 days. In the end, one had to rely on oneself to become a strong warrior. In 25 days, his mastery of saber had increased from 30% to 80%, which was a full 50% increase. He benefited a lot. Thank you for your guidance. Lin Feng opened his eyes, which were full of saber essence, and bowed slightly. Go, prepare well, Dongwang said. Huh, prepare well? Lin Feng instantly understood what the clan leader meant. Previously, he was not strong enough. Even when he entered the turbulent void, he followed the 5th sister and could not contribute much to the clan. But now it was different. Not to mention other things, just the mastery of saber had reached 80%, and his combat strength had improved a lot. In the eyes of the clan leader, his current strength should be comparable to the 6th brother, Suin. But in fact, his strength had surpassed the 5th sister, because he had the top saber move, the obscuring heavenly saber. However, he had just comprehended the obscuring heavenly saber. If he wanted to exert 100% of its power, he still needed some time to familiarize himself with it, practice, and even fight on the spot. After saying goodbye to Dongwang, Lin Feng immediately left Dongwang Palace. He had delayed the clan leader for a long time. After all, the clan leader had a lot of things to do. His own cultivation alone could not be delayed. The turbulent void was about to open. It could be said that the strength of Dongwang, the clan leader, directly determined the harvest of the Milky Way human tribe. Every time the turbulent void opened, it was a reshuffling of the major forces and clans. In such a tight situation, he still taught him without reservation. This kindness was very heartwarming. It's almost time to go to Tranquil Lake. Let's go to the second brother first. Lin Feng rushed to Tranquil Lake number 2. He was still somewhat unfamiliar with his eldest brother, Dongwang, but he was much more familiar with his second brother, Shi Dingshan. On the one hand, Shi Dingshan had a gentle personality, just like a kind elder. On the other hand, he was brought back by Shi Dingshan. Like a guide, he was naturally close to him. The affairs of the clan were basically handled by the second brother, Shi Dingshan, and the third sister, Enigma. After all, one person was definitely too busy. Even if they were busy, they would not have time to cultivate. Among them, the quota of Tranquil Lake and the allocation of time were decided by the second brother, Shi Dingshan. This reflected the difference in status between the second brother and the third sister. Tranquil Lake was the most important asset of the Milky Way human tribe. Obviously, the second brother had a higher status in the clan. After all, he and Dongwang belonged to the Milky Way human tribe. After all, he was a super strong person ranked 25th on the Source Awakening list. He was even more powerful than the third sister, Enigma. After comprehending the time quota of Tranquil Lake this time, I'll go practice the saber to improve my combat strength. Lin Feng's saber heart was still surging. After all, he had just finished cultivating. It was more suitable to cultivate saber techniques now. However, the quota of Tranquil Lake was more important. Anyway, he had already comprehended the realm. He was not in a hurry. There would not be any bottlenecks because of this. However, I still feel that there's something strange about the 10,000 obscuring heavenly saber. Since it's engraved in the bloodline, logically speaking, it shouldn't be just an ordinary set of saber moves. Oh, Chapter 1968. Number 2 Calming Heart Lake, where Shi Dingshan's residence was located. It has been decided. Impossible. Who decided it? Fifth brother or sixth sister? They don't have that much Calming Heart Lake left. His voice was cold and had a hint of impatience. His steel-like body gave off a terrifying feeling that it couldn't be shaken. His muscles were bulging, and he was emitting a murderous aura. It was Sanya. It's the patriarch. Shi Dingshan hesitated and said. Sanya looked at Shi Dingshan coldly and said, Impossible. The patriarch is always the last to decide. It is the same for you and third sister. Second brother, we are brothers. Why don't you get straight to the point? Shi Dingshan said righteously. The patriarch decided it. Fourth brother, this year's quota is reserved for seventh brother. Seventh brother? Sanya frowned. The new 9-star expert, Lin Feng. Although Sanya had been cultivating, he knew about the huge incident that happened in the clan, including the fact that his disciple, Qi Hong, lost the 60-day Calming Heart Lake quota. However, he didn't care too much about it. Sanya had a cold personality and was more concerned about himself. Therefore, after Lin Feng broke through, he had met the patriarch, Dong Huang, and Suan. However, he had never met Sanya. It wasn't that Sanya looked down on Lin Feng. When Suan broke through, Sanya was just as cold. It was his personality. So I still have to wait for 2 years? Sanya's expression was cold. Every round of Calming Heart Lake quota was 10 years. There was still 1 year left for this round. In addition to the next round, he had to wait for 2 years. More than 2 years. Shi Dingshan said, after Lin Feng, fifth sister, set it for half a year. Sanya frowned even more. 2.5 years. Originally, he didn't care too much about it. 10 years was just a blink of an eye. However, the turbulent void was about to open soon. He couldn't cultivate in the Calming Heart Lake after it opened. If he missed the opportunity, he would suffer great losses. Therefore, this round of Calming Heart Lake quota was very important to him. If he had 1 year, Sanya was confident that he could increase his strength by 10%. One had to know that with Sanya's current strength and ranking, 10% was already a huge amount. It was more than the combined strength of ordinary 9-star experts. It was decided by the Patriarch. Sanya wasn't an idiot. He knew that since the Patriarch had decided on this matter, it would be difficult for him to interfere. The allocation of quotas for Tranquil Heart Lake followed a principle: first come, first served. If Lin Feng was only an 8-star expert, he could still replace him. But now Lin Feng was at the same level as him, and they were all 9-star strongmen. There was no difference in status, even for the Patriarch. But for the Patriarch, Dong Wang, the quota of Tranquil Lake was no longer important. There's no other way. Let's wait, Shi Dingshan said. Suddenly, a clansman came in and reported, Deputy Patriarch, Lord Lin Feng is here. Lin Feng? Shi Dingshan and Song Ye's eyes lit up. Brother Shi, fourth brother. Lin Feng greeted them with a smile. You're here, seventh brother. Shi Dingshan laughed heartily. He wasn't surprised. Dong Wang had already told him to make things easier for Lin Feng. Therefore, he left 1 year's quota of Tranquil Heart Lake for Lin Feng. Even though they were all 9-star experts, Lin Feng had just become a 9-star expert. Sanya and Lu Ying had been 9-star experts for a long time. The same quota of Tranquil Heart Lake time was very different. Seventh brother. Sanya nodded. I'm sorry, fourth brother. Please don't take what happened before to heart. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of offending King Sanya. But since they were all from the same clan, he naturally hoped to see each other on good terms. It would be best if he could turn a small matter into nothing. There's no need to talk about Qi Hong. He thought too highly of himself. If he was willing to bet, he should admit defeat, King Sanya said directly. His expression was cold, and no one could tell what he was feeling. But there's one thing that I hope you can promise me. Lin Feng nodded. What's the matter? King Sanya said, I won't beat around the bush. I want you to give me all of the quota of Tranquil Heart Lake in the first year. The quota of Tranquil Heart Lake in the first year? Lin Feng was slightly stunned. He looked at his second brother, Shi Dingshan. It's like this, seventh brother. The clan leader has reserved the time of the next round of Tranquil Heart Lake for you. It's a full year for the first year, Shi Dingshan said. Wow, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. A full year's quota of Tranquil Heart Lake time. To him, this was even better than an outstanding cardinal treasure. The clan leader had given him a quota of 600 days for Tranquil Heart Lake. In addition to the 100 days that he would get next year, as well as the remaining time that he won from Qi Hong, he had a total of 840 days. However, each round of Tranquil Heart Lake time was limited. There was a total of 10 years, 3,650 days. He couldn't take 840 days alone. The 9-star, 8-star, 7-star experts, and even those below 7-star had to use Tranquil Heart Lake. Basically, the quota was divided into 4 equal parts. The 9-star experts would get about 900 days. If he took 365 days alone, the other 9-star experts would have less time. Seventh brother, you have just broken through and don't need to use Tranquil Heart Lake. What you should do now is to strike while the iron is hot and stabilize your strength. Song Ye's eyes were like torches. He said in a deep voice, I will use this year's quota first. It's decided then. Lin Feng frowned. Even Shi Dingshan sighed in his heart and felt helpless. His fourth brother, Song Ye, was a straightforward person with a fiery temper. He didn't care about anyone and offended people easily. Don't mind him, seventh brother. Fourth brother's temper is like that. He says whatever he wants. That's not what he meant. Shi Dingshan quickly tried to smooth things over. I'm telling the truth. Song Ye's voice was cold. He looked at Lin Feng and raised his head slightly. Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you defeated Qi Hong. The path of an expert is not to be arrogant. You have just entered the 9-star level and should cultivate step by step. I know you are a genius. However, those who can reach the 9-star level are not fools. Your strength is still far from sixth brothers. Stabilize your realm and don't be a burden to us when we enter the void turbulence. Lin Feng's expression gradually turned cold. This kind of bossy and overbearing attitude was what he hated the most. It was obvious that fourth brother Song Yu was still a little dissatisfied with him. Or rather, he didn't feel comfortable. After all, he had defeated Chi Hong that day. Chi Hong didn't say anything, but Jiang had indeed embarrassed him. Right now, he wanted to get back at Chi Hong. However, it wasn't Jiang who had provoked Chi Hong that day. Chi Hong had provoked him on purpose. Jiang couldn't do it without retaliating when he was beaten or scolded. Song Yu was straightforward, but Jiang was even more straightforward. If Song Yu had talked nicely and discussed with him about exchanging the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake, Jiang wouldn't have taken all of it. Even if he couldn't get a year, he could get half a year. But now, I'm sorry, fourth brother. Since it is my time quota for Tranquil Heart Lake, I will make the decision myself. Lin Feng smiled and looked at Song Yu. He didn't care about the fierce look in Song Yu's eyes. This 1 year's time quota, I won't change it for even a day. Chapter 1969. His voice was sonorous, and the entire hall fell silent. Shi Dingshan raised his eyebrows and looked up to avoid their aggressive gazes. It was too late for him to be a peacemaker now. He could hear the hostility in Song Yu's voice. Although he said he didn't mind, he was actually very unhappy with Lin Feng for not giving him face earlier. Lin Feng was also a tough nut to crack. He was amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. Shi Dingshan knew Lin Feng's temper from the beginning. What a joke. Would someone who could go against the Destiny tribe be the type to admit defeat? Even if he died, he believed that Lin Feng wouldn't lower his head. However, Song Yu was the same. Which genius didn't have a temper? The more extreme a genius was, the more confident they were. Very good. Very few people dare to talk to me like this. Song Yu laughed instead of getting angry, but the ferocity in his eyes was undisguised. What an arrogant genius. The patriarch has really misjudged you this time. Is such a self-centered, so-called genius really useful to our race? Song Yu shook his head coldly, looking disappointed. Lin Feng smiled. Fourth brother, don't judge others based on your way of thinking. You are you, and I am me. Your standards don't mean they are correct, and mine don't mean they are wrong. Moreover, do you think your vision is better than the patriarch's? It seems that you were also discovered by the patriarch back then, right? Lin Feng didn't care about the battle of words at all. Song Yu's expression was slightly ugly, but he couldn't refute. He could only sneer. It seems that seventh brother is not only talented, but also eloquent. Very good. As your fourth brother, I will wait and see if seventh brother is really strong or just an empty reputation. There was anger in his words, and it was difficult for him to control his temper. Song Yu couldn't remember when he had been contradicted like this. Whether I am strong or not, why don't you? Test it yourself, fourth brother. Lin Feng maintained his smile, but the fighting spirit in his eyes was undisguised. Bang! There was a sudden clap of thunder. As soon as he said this, even Shi Dingshan, who had been uninvolved, changed his expression. Don't be reckless, seventh brother. Ha! Ha ha ha! It was as if Song Yu had just heard the funniest joke in the world. His eyes were filled with contempt as he laughed. Do you know who I am? I'm Song Yu. Outside the clan, everyone calls me King Lu Song. Do you know where this nickname came from? It's Battle. It's a name that I, Song Yu, have forged through bloody massacres. I am ranked 39th on the Origin Awakening list. You want to challenge me? His words were filled with arrogance. Song Yu naturally disdained to fight with Lin Feng. Who was he? A newbie who had just entered the 9-star realm dared to challenge him? Overconfident. His imposing aura fully displayed the arrogance and demeanor of an expert, just like an overlord. However, Lin Feng remained indifferent. I formally challenge you. Fourth brother, do you accept? Lin Feng looked at Song Yu, not concealing his battle intent at all. After his strength had increased, he really wanted to know what level his strength was at in the 9-star realm. He could be stronger than 6th brother Su and stronger than 5th sister Lu Ying, but could he be stronger than 4th brother Song Yu? Lin Feng really wanted to know. He was not afraid of losing. Even if he lost, he could benefit greatly from it. 4th brother Song Yu was proficient in battle and forged his reputation through massacres. He was absolutely the best opponent to spar with. If he could win this battle, there would be hundreds of advantages and no disadvantages for him. Swords drawn and bows bent. Dingshan was sandwiched in the middle, his face filled with helplessness. He wanted to persuade them to make peace, but the problem was that these two stubborn rocks could not be persuaded at all. At present, he could finally see that Lin Feng and Sanya were already at odds with each other, not giving in to each other. If they did not fight with real swords and spears, this grudge would probably be hard to resolve. However, regarding Lin Feng taking the initiative to challenge Sanya, Dingshan still did not understand. In a moment of anger, from what he knew, Lin Feng was clearly not an impulsive person. Could it be that his strength was already able to defeat Sanya? That was even more impossible. Even if fifth sister Lu Ying and sixth brother Su teamed up, they would not beat Sanya's opponent. Ranked 39th on the Origin Awakening list, Sanya King did not have an undeserved reputation. He was even stronger than Wu Rai, who had beaten Lin Feng into a sorry state. Are you sure you want to challenge me? Sanya stared straight at Lin Feng. After a long time, he suddenly revealed a cold smile. Yes. Lin Feng nodded. Sanya coldly said, "It is not impossible for me to agree to your challenge. We will wager the first year's quota for the next round of Tranquil Heart Lake." Lin Feng was slightly surprised. "Exchange," Sanya coldly said. "What? When you won against my disciple, you took it without hesitation, but now you want to exchange it with me?" Lin Feng suddenly understood. So, fourth brother Song, you wanted to take the 365-day quota without shedding a drop of blood? Every 10 years, 9-star experts will be given a 100-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. Thus, a 365-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake was already a lot. "You don't dare," Sanya provoked. "This is a bit too much, fourth brother." Dingshan frowned and tried to dissuade him. Sanya glanced at Dingshan and coldly said, "Since he wants to challenge me, he should be mentally prepared. I did not ask for his outstanding treasure, only the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. To him, 365 days is not a lot. If he wants to overestimate himself and be arrogant, that is fine. I will make him pay the price." But Dingshan still wanted to persuade Sanya. "Second brother, this is between me and him." Sanya stared straight at Dingshan. If he thinks it is not suitable, he can just reject it. What kind of person am I, Sanya, would force a little guy? Lin Feng smiled. "Did I say I would reject it?" Seventh brother. Dingshan was shocked and hastily said, "Was he really going to accept it?" Sanya's strength was not something Chi Hong's could compare to. "Oh." Sanya was quite surprised. "You have some guts. So you agree?" Lin Feng laughed involuntarily. "How can I agree? Fourth brother, it is not good for you to gain something without risking anything. You wanted to give you a year's quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. What about you? Same for a year, and I will give it to you immediately." Sanya waved his hand and looked straight at Lin Feng. "Not only that, if you can beat me, I will also give you my precious cloudy heaven crystal. Its value is equivalent to an outstanding treasure. That is not taking advantage of you, right?" Lin Feng nodded. "Good, then it is decided. Second brother will be the witness. Is that okay?" Sanya looked at Dingshan, who sighed softly and helplessly. He was also riding a tiger and could not get off. "I can't persuade you. If that is the case, then so be it. It is not a bad thing to spar." Dingshan smiled bitterly and glanced at Sanya and Lin Feng. "The time will be 1 year later, on the last day of Tranquil Heart Lake. What do you think?" "No problem." "Good." Lin Feng and Sanya looked at each other, their battle intent surging. 1 year later, they would fight to see who was stronger. Chapter 1970. After Sanya left, only Lin Feng and Dingshan were left in the hall. "Seventh brother, tell me honestly, are you sure you could defeat Sanya?" Dingshan asked curiously. "No." Lin Feng smiled. Dingshan sighed helplessly. "Then why are you so impulsive? I know fourth brother best. He will never show you any mercy. You will suffer a double loss. Why bother?" "Well, let me handle this. I will help you talk to fourth brother. Maybe there will be room for negotiation." Lin Feng's heart warmed, and he said, "There's no need for that, second brother. A real man keeps his word. It's just a spar. Even if we lose, the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake will be given to our own people, right?" Shi Dingshan said thoughtfully, "That's true. Second brother, if you really want to help me, can you arrange more places for me to practice in Ningxin Lake in the remaining year?" Lin Feng asked. "Well," Shi Dingshan frowned. "The last year is mostly for 7-star and below warriors. It is short and intensive. It is difficult to arrange. I will check later." "Okay, thank you, Brother Shi," Lin Feng said. Shi Dingshan nodded. He wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. He could only sigh in his heart. Geniuses were indeed eccentric. Dongwang Palace. A sword was flying. A figure full of sword will appeared. His sword technique was like a rainbow. 1 year later, "You'll fight with Sonya?" Dongwang's eyes flashed, and he smiled faintly. "I knew it. This little guy still has some hidden cards." Total proficiency of saber, 80% realm. It may be possible to defeat 5th Sister Luing, but to defeat Sonya, boom, boom, boom. The purple sword suddenly burst out. The sword in the whole Dongwang Palace was extremely wild. "Let me see how strong you are." Dongwang's sword was soaring. Boundless power suddenly burst out. It was vast and surging. It was domineering. As the turbulent void was about to open, he was also fully awakened. "Challenge 4th brother?" Su An's eyes widened, and he was speechless for a long time. He shook his head and muttered to himself, "This Lin Feng is really fearless. He even dares to challenge 4th brother. Wait, that's not right. He doesn't seem like a reckless and impulsive person. Since he dared to challenge 4th brother and even made a bet, there's no reason for him not to have any confidence. No matter how bad it is, he must have some tricks up his sleeve. So, he's stronger than me now?" Thinking of this, Suan immediately jumped out of the tranquil heart pool, allowing the water droplets to drip down. He was shocked. If it were him, he probably wouldn't even have the courage to challenge 4th brother. This was impossible. He clearly just stepped into the 9-star realm. It's impossible for him to surpass me. Impossible. Suan widened his eyes in shock. Not only Suan, but Firefly King and Enigma also received the news. This was not a secret in the first place. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and the news soon spread throughout the entire race. It was a confrontation between 2 9-star experts. It was rare, even in the entire Origin Awakening continent. This was especially so since both sides had their own unique traits. One of them was Sonya, who was known as the Plum Slayer King, who had emerged victorious in every battle. The other was Lin Feng, a super rookie who had unbelievably stepped into the 9-star level. It was too eye-catching. "I heard that this isn't an ordinary duel." "Hee, you guys definitely don't know. They bet an entire year's quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake." "Oh my god, an entire year." "It's true." Chi Hong even specially asked Sonya about it, and Sonya didn't deny it. "Amazing. An entire year's quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. This is a huge sum. Even a 9-star expert would need to save up for 40 years to get it. Lord Lin Feng is really daring. It's fine if you just bet with Chi Hong, but that's Sonya. I've never heard of Sonya losing even once. Even if the Vice Patriarch's ranking is higher than Sonya's on the Origin Awakening list, he might not necessarily win. Of course, Sonya is the most proficient in combat and has stepped in the 9-star realm for countless eras. Lord Lin Feng has just stepped into the 9-star realm. How could he be a match for Sonya? Lord Lin Feng didn't give face to Sonya and taught Chi Hong a lesson. In the end, Master came to stand up for him. Everyone was in a heated discussion. They were looking forward to this duel a year later. It was rare to see a battle between 9-star experts. Moreover, this wasn't just an ordinary duel. It was definitely a real duel for the Tranquil Heart Lake quota. At this moment, Lin Feng had already started cultivating at the Tranquil Heart Lake. He had originally set 2 cultivation periods for this year. One was 25 days, and the other was 15 days. In Shi Dingshan's opinion, it was too short and wasn't suitable for comprehension. However, to Lin Feng, it was enough. Although it took him a little longer to enter the state, Lin Feng had already comprehended the bottleneck of the radiant divine Tao to perfection in less than a day. On the 7th day, the Tao of light halo had reached perfection. On the 13th day, the Tao of light had reached perfection. On the 25th day, phew, I have finally comprehended it to perfection. Lin Feng let out a long breath and ended his cultivation. Before the 25-day deadline was about to end, he had also comprehended the Tao of light to perfection. This is faster than expected. Lin Feng opened his eyes and was very satisfied. Overall, his comprehension speed was much faster than the first time he entered. Among the 6 Tao of light, the Tao of light and the Tao of light had the best aptitude, followed by the Tao of light and the Tao of light, followed by the Tao of light and the Tao of radiance. This time, his comprehension of the Tao of light and the Tao of light was much faster than the Tao of light and the Tao of light. This was because his life force level had increased. This was because his bloodline had reached perfection and he was stronger. He didn't even think about the duel a year later. It didn't matter if he won or lost. He just wanted to do his best. In the next 15 days, I will be able to comprehend the 6 Tao of light to perfection. Although he had asked his second brother, Shi Dingshan, to help him see if the Tranquil Heart Lake quota could be changed, Lin Feng knew that the possibility was very low. The Tranquil Heart Lake quota was basically divided into 4 equal parts. Although the quota time wasn't fixed, the last year was usually reserved for 7-star and below martial artists to cultivate and comprehend. Even if they were allowed to give up temporarily, it would be 1, 2, or 3 days. This was a step-by-step process. Cultivation required time to get into the right state. Intermittent cultivation wasn't good. 15 days is enough. Although I can't comprehend the Tao of darkness to perfection, the 6 Tao of light have reached perfection. With the help of the 3rd stage of the divine pattern of light, with the previous experience of fusion, I could try to fuse them at the perfection stage. Lin Feng jumped out of the Tranquil Heart Lake. Although there was still half an hour, he didn't need it anymore. There are still 15 days left in half a year. In this half a year, I will focus on practicing my saber skills and master the universal sky-covering saber. At the very least, the 3rd move should be as pure as fire. Lin Feng nodded. Although the possibility of defeating Sanya wasn't high, he would definitely do his best. Chapter 1971. Leaving Tranquil Heart Lake. Outside, the second brother, Shi Dingshan, stood with his hands behind his back, as if he was already waiting. Brother Shi, Lin Feng greeted him with a smile. Looks like you've gained a lot. Shi Dingshan laughed heartily and patted Lin Feng's shoulder. Lin Feng nodded. Of the 6 paths of light, he had comprehended 5 of them. Adding the path of dark demon, he had a total of 6 paths of great perfection. Even among the 9-star experts, he was considered outstanding. However, most 9-star experts wouldn't comprehend so many paths of great perfection because they weren't very useful and their strength was limited. In addition, their aptitudes varied. They might have excellent aptitudes for the path of light, average aptitudes for the path of light, and poor aptitudes for the path of light. There were too many such examples. Most 9-star experts would choose to strengthen 1 or 2 of them and supplement it with excellent treasures to increase their realm power. You've just entered the 9-star level, so Tranquil Heart Lake will be of great help to you. Shi Dingshan said, 4th brother is on the path of complete integration of the laws of Earth, so he has a great need for Tranquil Heart Lake. So, don't take it to heart. Lin Feng smiled. I understand, Brother Shi. Shi Dingshan nodded and frowned slightly. The quota for this year's Tranquil Heart Lake has been set long ago, and it's almost the end, so it's hard to change it. Although there are a few sporadic days, I don't think you need it. Lin Feng nodded. Sorry to trouble you, Brother Shi. Shi Dingshan smiled. It's my duty. By the way, 5th sister came to me. She transferred next year's quota to you. Huh? Lin Feng was surprised. Shi Dingshan said for the next 10 years, the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake was originally yours for the first year. The first half of the second year would be given to 5th sister, and the latter half would be given to me and Enigma. After a discussion, we decided to transfer all of it to you. Lin Feng quickly understood. Brother Shi and the others must have guessed that he would lose, so they gathered this year's quota for him. After all, each person's quota for the Calming Heart Lake was limited every 10 years. For example, he had already obtained a year's quota, but if he lost it, it would mean that there was no more, even if he still had a lot of time left. Brother Sure, fifth sister, and the others were all like this. If they gave it to him, it meant that they would be using their own quota. If he wanted to enter the Tranquil Heart Lake, he would have to wait 10 years. Don't look at me like that. Sure Dingshan chuckled and said, "You are different from us. You have just entered the 9-star level, so you need the Tranquil Heart Lake to strengthen your strength. Enigma, fifth sister, and I have been cultivating for countless eras. 10 years later won't delay anything. Thank you so much, Brother Sure. Please also thank Sister San and Sister Wu for me." Lin Feng was touched. "There's no need to thank me. This is an exchange, and I have to return it. I'm not giving it to you for free." Sure Dingshan pretended to glare. "Of course." Lin Feng smiled. Half a year flew by. Lin Feng had perfected the second move of the myriad obscuring heavenly saber, Tears of Troubled Times. He had comprehended more than half of the third move, Mandarin Ducks. As for the fourth move, Boundless Weight, although he wanted to, he did not touch upon it. After all, his saber's omnipotence realm had only reached 80%. At 80% of the realm, it was easy to cultivate the second move, Tears of Troubled Times, which only required 40% of the realm. The third move, Mandarin Ducks, which required 60% of the realm, was also average. However, it would be difficult to cultivate the fourth move, Boundless Weight, which required 80% of the realm. Of course, this so-called difficulty was only a matter of time. Compared to saber moves, comprehension of the realm was the truly difficult part. When one's realm was sufficient and there were ready-made saber moves to learn, comprehension would be much easier. However, the myriad obscuring heavenly saber was not an ordinary saber move after all. Even with the 100,000 times time cultivation array, Lin Feng had spent 50,000 years, which was equivalent to half a year in the outside world, but he still could not truly comprehend the true essence of the third move, Mandarin Ducks. It's enough to unleash 80% of its power. Furthermore, Mandarin Ducks emphasizes more on the combination of light and darkness. It's much more complicated than Tears of Troubled Times. Lin Feng knew that his greatest weakness was fusion. The fusion of light and darkness was too difficult. Even with a complete bloodline, the black vortex was still difficult. Therefore, he was in a rush to cultivate the mystic technique, Myriad Heaven Tao. As long as I cultivate the first volume, the fusion power will increase by a large margin. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. Even if his strength was inferior to Tsang Ye's, as long as he cultivated the first volume of the Myriad Heaven Tao, his strength would immediately soar. When that happened, he was confident that he could surpass Tsang Ye. It's about time. I should head to Tranquil Heart Lake. Lin Feng put away the Eclipse Mystic Civ Saber and turned to leave. The 15-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake was very short. Lin Feng spent 2 full days just to enter a perfect state. After all, he had been practicing the Myriad Heaven Saber for the past half a year. To be precise, it was 50,000 years. It was not easy to immediately change from a saber practice state to a nomological insight state. Even if he forcefully entered, his insights would more or less be obstructed, and he would not be able to unleash 100%. However, 15 days was enough. Lin Feng was immersed in the endless radiance. He was nearing the end of his nomological insight. Bit by bit, the nomological ocean turned into one as he looked down from above. Suddenly, there was a flash of inspiration as Lin Feng revealed a smile. His entire body was immersed in the nomological ocean. Every cell in his body was filled with joy. Clear nomological Tao was imprinted in his mind as he absorbed the endless light energy. The radiance was dazzling. Finally, I've comprehended it. Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile. Although his Tao of Light was not as good as the Tao of Light and Tao of Light, he had the foundation of the first 5 great Tao of Light. After spending 12 days, he had reached the level of great perfection. He was in high spirits as the power of the nomological laws was imbued into his body. The divine patterns became more perfect and complex, as though they were connected into a line, forming a beautiful picture scroll. It was much better than the demonic patterns. As his life's level increased, his strength foundation subconsciously improved. He had comprehended all 6 Tao of light to great perfection. Pung, pung, pung. Lin Feng's heartbeat sped up. Endless power of laws fell from the sky like a meteor shower into calming heart lake, all of which gathered in his body. He felt as if he had been enlightened, and his entire body was bathed in the law of light. It was incomparably comfortable and joyful. The third stage of the divine pattern of light excitedly absorbed the pure, nomological power. Even the color of the divine pattern changed slightly. It was brighter and more profound. On his forehead, the mark of light shone as though it was pressed into his brain. It was very eye-catching. Inside his body, the nomological power, along with the mark of light, was imprinted on every cell, every piece of skin, and every piece of bone. It left a mark of light as though they were assimilated by the origin of light. His entire body was like a brand new person, completely transformed. So this is the path that fourth brother Song Yu wants to take, the path of the fusion of the 6 Tao of origin. Lin Feng smiled. Chapter 1972. Unintentionally planting a willow, the willow grows a shade. Lin Feng had not thought of developing in this direction in the beginning and had not deliberately studied it. To him, this was just one of the steps in cultivating the Thousand Heaven path. It turned out that after comprehending all 6 branches of the great Tao of origin to perfection, such a change would occur. Every part of his body would be fused with the mark of light, as though he had become the embodiment of light. His comprehension of the origin of light was extremely clear. Lin Feng opened his hand, and a ball of light was formed almost instantly. He clenched his hand and compressed it into a powerful ball of light. He could control it with ease. This was the origin of light. The acquisition, control, and tolerance of the origin of light have all increased greatly. Lin Feng sighed, at least 10 times. Even his divine pattern of light bloodline seemed to have undergone a significant change. As a result, the fusion of the 6 paths of light, which he had estimated would be difficult, became easy. Very easy. Lin Feng's control of light had reached a whole new level. Swoosh! He closed his eyes, and his consciousness easily entered the sea of origin of light. He did not need the tranquil heart lake to immerse himself in it. In the tranquil heart lake, his comprehension was more than 10 times clearer than before. The boundless origin of light was within reach. If Lin Feng wanted to create some secret techniques, it would be easy. However, there was no need for that. This is a change in the structure of life. Therefore, I am extremely close to the origin of light and can easily control it. So this is what it is like to comprehend all 6 paths of light to perfection. Lin Feng did not expect that this change would greatly increase his strength. The only troublesome thing was that as his bloodline of light sublimated and his body changed, his comprehension of darkness decreased. One happy and one sad. It is not that my comprehension of darkness decreased. It is just that my comprehension of light is too strong. Moreover, the mark of light is embedded in every cell of my body. Light and darkness repel each other. Therefore, the repel is even stronger. Or rather, it is natural suppression. Lin Feng was helpless. His killer move was the fusion of light and darkness. However, in this way, he would not be able to unleash its full power in the battle with Sonya half a year later. After all, darkness would be suppressed too much. Fortunately, it's only temporary. Lin Feng didn't mind. His talent in the 6 paths of darkness was not inferior to the 6 paths of light. After the next quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, he would have a full year to comprehend the 6 paths of darkness and obtain the law of darkness origin. His consciousness would step into the sea of origin law, and the mark of darkness would be integrated into his body. He just didn't know if both the mark of light and the mark of darkness were imprinted into the cells at the same time. Would the body be able to withstand it? Ancestor Wangan was able to withstand it. There's no reason why I can't. Lin Feng thought to himself. With Ancestor Wan Qian's strength, it was too easy for him to comprehend all 12 great Tao laws. Otherwise, he would not have created the secret technique, Wan Qian Dao. His comprehension of the light and darkness Daos had long since reached the limit. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Lin Feng was also carefree. There's still half a year. Prepare well for the battle with Fourth Brother. Even if I lose, I will go all out and unleash my strongest combat strength. Lin Feng would not admit defeat just like that. Everything depended on human effort. After Lin Feng came out of Calming Heart Lake, he entered seclusion to comprehend the Great Tao of Light. The fusion of the 6 Great Tao of Light gave him a new cultivation system and direction. With the myriad obscuring heavenly blade, his strength steadily increased. Inside the 100,000 times time cultivation array, half a year was equivalent to 50,000 years. With the myriad origin mustard stone, Lin Feng could completely withstand the tremendous pressure that the flow of time brought to his soul. Although the cultivation conditions inside the time cultivation array were poor, and it was difficult to use it to comprehend the laws, it was best to use it to improve his realm. This included the fusion of the 6 Great Tao of Light. This included the use of an outstanding treasure. Brahmaha! Lin Feng laughed heartily. This outstanding treasure's name is exaggerated. Otherwise, it would not have been given to me directly. Back then, Brahma had been given to him by the Patriarch as a greeting gift. Of the 3 abilities, only the basic ability, Brahma Domain, could be used. The advanced ability, Brahma's Wrath, required one to be proficient in the spatial law, strangulation. As for the ultimate ability, Great Brahma, there was no need to mention it. One had to know that the spatial law, strangulation, was already considered an extremely advanced spatial law. It was an extremely powerful law attack. In the entire Origin Awakening continent, the number of experts who had comprehended the law of space, strangulation, could be counted on one hand. Moreover, all of them were major figures who were awe-inspiring in their respective regions. Therefore, although this superior true treasure, Nirvana Domain, seemed pretty good, it was actually only a high-grade elite true treasure at best. But now, a perfect combination. If I can master Brahma's Wrath, combined with the power of the Warm Wings, I will have some hope of fighting Fourth Brother. There is still time. When one had a goal, one would often be forced to unleash their greatest potential. For example, the cultivation at Calming Heart Lake had a time limit. The closer to the end of the time limit, the more profound and faster Lin Feng would be able to comprehend. This was why he could comprehend all 6 Great Taos of Light in a short 40 days. Right now, Fourth Brother, Sangya, was standing in front of him. This allowed Lin Feng's potential to be fully unleashed. 50,000 years of bitter cultivation. The fusion of the 6 Great Taos of Light, the practice of the myriad obscurity heavenly blade, the control of an outstanding true treasure. Lin Feng improved himself one by one, including the heaven and earth fruits. He was not in a hurry to exchange for some rare heaven and earth fruits at the Contribution Pagoda. After all, his body needed time to absorb them. Moreover, at the 9-star level, physical strength was secondary. What was more important was the level of one's realm. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Huff! Lin Feng, who had his eyes closed, stood up. All his essence, energy, and spirit merged into his body. He was like a treasured saber in its scabbard. Once it was unsheathed, it would shock the world. Unfortunately, there's not enough time. Give me another year, and I am 60% confident that I can defeat Fourth Brother. Give me another 3 years, and I am 80% confident that I could defeat Fourth Brother. Give me another 10 years, and I am 100% confident. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with confidence. Although he only had a 30% chance of winning, it was much higher than what he had expected. Before he started cultivating, Lin Feng had estimated that his chances of winning were no more than 10%. Although the difference was only 20%, it was a world of difference. One represented a huge gap and an irresistible force. The other represented chance. Although there was a gap in strength, it was still within reach. The most important thing was, putting aside this exchange of pointers, Lin Feng had a clear understanding of his future strength. 10 years later, he would truly stabilize his strength and realm at the 9-star level. At that time, his battle strength would surpass Song Ya's, although it is only 30%. Fourth brother, it won't be that easy to defeat me. Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly as he left the mansion. He would do his best,